Hey everybody, little disclaimer before today's edition of Ducks in Deep. The first informational part of the podcast, the topical part of the show, was recorded on Sunday before the Ranger game on Monday, after the two Kings games over the weekend. I had planned on editing it then, and like a lot of this podcast, as you'll hear, some delays on my end in terms of the editing and getting it out. And the main body of the podcast was recorded a few times. The mailbag was recorded a couple times. The mailbag also delayed even further than that. So when you're listening to the topical part, some of the information, the standings information might be a little outdated, but it's mostly intact. I didn't feel the need to re-record everything after the Ranger game because I don't think that game altered the overarching narrative of the team too much, other than they've now won 4 in a row going into this road trip. Currently in Denver, as we wait to cover the team tomorrow. I'll also be in Seattle on the weekend. And the mailbag, the same thing. Mostly topical. I don't think there's anything too specific in there. And if there is, just my major apologies for all that. This has been a struggle to get this one out for one reason or another. I don't anticipate that happening again. I don't want that to happen again for myself or for you all out there who consume the content. So, again, just major apologies for the choppiness of what this episode is. But please enjoy. Stick around for the mailbag, which I get into some big questions. And I go into some fun stuff towards the end of the mailbag. It's a long one. Please stick through it. I think you'll really enjoy this one. So, just stick around and enjoy this belabored, chopped up, but still coming straight at you edition of Ducks in Deep.
Let's keep it simple, play our game, and get Ducks in deep. Hey everybody, I'm Zach Cavanagh, Anaheim Ducks reporter for the Sporting Tribune, and this team is finally back on track. We'll talk about the Ducks snapping a 9-game losing skid with a 3-game losing streak, how that's happened, and who's stepping up in the absence of some of the team's biggest producers, best stars, most important players. Who's stepping up in those roles. Then we will finally dive into a wide open year-end, new year, month of January mailbag, answering your questions on the Ducks and so much more. And I will certainly touch on the delay of why we are where we are and keep you updated on the goings-on of things. But first, Ducks in Deep is now available on Apple, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Follow Ducks in Deep to make sure new episodes are deposited straight into your audio feeds. Rate and review on your platform of choice. It helps out a ton. You can still subscribe to the Sporting Tribune YouTube channel for video editions of Ducks in Deep, like you're seeing right here if you're watching. And of course, all the latest Ducks media sessions from practices, morning skates, post games, and everything in between. Read more coverage like my post-game notebooks on thesportingtribune.com, as well as plenty of our other coverage across the site, from the NFL playoffs to so much more. Everything going on the Sporting Tribune. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Zach Cav. That's at ZACHCAV. And on TikTok and Blue Sky at Zach Cav Sports for all the latest Ducks news, articles, video, tidbits, back and forth conversations, arguments if you want to get into some. It's all there on the social media where you can find all of my work and so much more. Consider showing your support for that work with a Patreon subscription at patreon.com/Zach Cavanagh as we continue to grow the Sporting Tribune and Ducks in Deep to the best Ducks coverage on the internet. Remember, the only way to guarantee your questions are answered in these monthly mailbags like the one today are to support and ask your questions on Patreon. Subscribing to Patreon also helps support our efforts for more road coverage of the Ducks, like you're going to be getting this week. I will be on the road with the team to start off that 5-game road trip. I will be with the team in Denver as they play the Avalanche, the league-leading Avalanche, a huge test to see if this turnaround is for real or able to do more than it is. I think it's for real, but we'll get to that. And, of course, I'll be to an even bigger game for the Ducks in Seattle next week as they continue to jockey for wildcard position. So many teams in that mix. Ducks and Kraken currently tied for points. So if you want to see that type of boots on the ground coverage where we can get in depth with this team at the crucial moments of the season as it goes on, you can support on Patreon at patreon.com/Zach Cavanagh. All the support there through the Patreon will go back into the coverage, into the work, in supporting the travel part of it, and as well as just ways to make this coverage better, bigger, more intense. So links for the Patreon, and if you don't want to do a monthly subscription, there's a travel fund as well if you want to give a more direct contribution. Links for all that are in the description below. Again, super grateful for anyone that's subscribed through this half of the year. And, I wouldn't be able to do these things without your support, and I wouldn't be able to have this platform without people watching, reading, interacting. It's kind of the whole point of all this. So thank you for following. Thank you for those that are Patreon subscribers, and we'll honor those subscriptions by answering those mailbag questions later in the show. But first, let's get in deep. All right, we'll start things off here by getting into the big picture, the big results of the weekend as the Ducks, through the week, turn around the 9-game losing skid without Leo Carlsson, who's now out 3 to 5 weeks after having a procedure for I hope I'm saying this right, Morel Lavallée lesion on his thigh, which I go into on the in my notebook, in my story that I wrote on it. It's pretty gross. It's, to put it very simply, it's a situation where the skin and fat kind of separate from the muscle and other tissues, and that space that's created fills in with blood and other such stuff that creates a problem. It's basically, if anyone knows what degloving is, it's a less grotesque version of that when it usually happens on people's fingers, but it's under the skin, and it causes a problem, especially for a pro athlete that is pushing off of his legs like Leo does to get up to speed. So he'll be out 3 to 5 weeks. Obviously, that takes him into the Olympic break, where the Olympics start in 3.5 weeks. So his participation with Sweden is in jeopardy. He has not been officially ruled out yet. It is possible that he could get up to speed by then, as that's the beginning of his good to go window. So we'll see where that lands. Troy Terry is on the IR with an upper body injury. He got put on IR retroactively, mostly just to open up a roster spot so that somebody could come in with all these guys that are going down, and we'll get to more of them. But because of that retroactive designation, Terry can come back at any point as soon as he's ready to go. He skated in a morning skate on Friday and looked like he was going to go, and obviously whatever was going on with his injury reoccurred and kept him out of the game. He's missed 5 games in a row now. I wasn't expecting him to play last night, but he's eligible to come off whenever. We'll see. Today's a full day off for the team. We'll see where they are on Monday morning if he's at the skate and if there's any updates. Obviously want to see Troy back in there as the longest tenured guy on the team. And who else? Chris Kreider has missed the last 2 games with an illness. He was a game time decision both days. And hopefully he's able to go on Monday when the Rangers come back into town. That would be kind of devastating for him personally, I imagine. So hopefully he's able to go. Cutter Gauthier was ill earlier in the week, and I think he's kind of still feeling the effects of that. He hasn't looked quite like himself either the last couple games. So in all that madness, the Ducks called up Sam Colangelo with the open roster spot that Troy Terry opened up. They made a small trade for Jeffrey Viel, who made his debut last night and had a fight against the Kings. So there's a lot of movement going on in the forward core with guys coming in and out, injuries and whatsoever. Where does that leave everything? In a mess, to be certain. But without all those guys, without your leading scorer in Leo Carlsson, without your leading assist man in Troy Terry, with your leading goal scorer, Cutter Gauthier, going through something, and Chris Kreider, your most impact acquisition of the offseason, also down the last couple games, what were the Ducks to do? Well, they were to break out of this 9-game losing streak and focus on the details of everything. Every guy I talked to leading up to the Dallas game had mentioned the defensive details, particularly just covering for each other in the neutral zone, simplifying play through the neutral zone, getting back in your coverage. And, the opening line of the show and the title of it are a play on those hockey buzzwords that we all hear, where guys are telling it to simplify their game, to play their game, to get pucks in deep. And that's how, it's a cliche, but it feels like it's something that this team has really taken to heart, especially when you watch just how these last 3 games have played out. Against Dallas, I think they only let up maybe 1 or 2 odd man rushes the entire game. and that in turn helps the goaltending start to reestablish itself. Lucas Dostal has been great, the last couple games. Even at the end of the road trip, he has started to reassert himself. You get the offensive production coming from getting pucks in behind the defense, especially against these two Kings games, getting in behind and letting the forecheck get to work, which Mason McTavish said the other day, and I agreed with him, that was what was working so well for them to start off the year, particularly him. Like, he had a great opening 5 or 6 games of the season before that slump, before the questions started to arise again. And it was built out of getting those pucks in there, forechecking hard, creating your own offense, and then once you win the puck and get into some free space and have grinded down the other team, you can capitalize. And that's what he's done. That's what Beckett Seneca has done. That's what the fourth line has done all season, the Ross Johnston effect as it continues to roll on here. And that is how the Ducks have won these games. They have been tighter. They have not been as free-flowing as the start of the season, for sure. But that's what this team needed to do. They needed to hone down on those details. They needed to reset the foundations of how this team is supposed to play and allow that to build off of itself. Now, when the rush game has been plugged up, they were struggling to get stuff going elsewhere. They have found a new way to play. And Kreider's been out, but I was able to talk to him after the Dallas game, and in terms of like what they need to pull forward. And it was myself and Derek Lee of the Hockey News. And Derek had started to ask him a question about offense, about, getting the offense going. And before Derek could even finish the question, Chris cut him off and just simply said, we don't need to score any more goals. Our offense is fine. Defense is how we're going to win these games. Defense is what we need to focus on. And sure enough, that's what's gotten them through. Even against a defensive-oriented team like the Kings, who really do everything they can to muck up the game and make you play in the mud, the Ducks, outside of the opening period against in LA on Friday, where they did kind of have some of those same things recur, and it seemed like I had felt like, oh no, is this where you had the one good game against Dallas, you feel good, and now the mistakes pop up again and they start to unravel? They didn't. They, again, recommitted themselves. They did not allow anything dangerous from the Kings for the rest of the game, and certainly nothing truly dangerous in the following game on Saturday night, where the Kings' only goal comes on a 5-on-3. It was a situation of, again, committing to the details, committing to the defensive game, not letting guys in behind you, keeping the puck in front of you, as Mikhail Granlund said last night, staying on top of things, being on top of your man, on top of the puck. And it's working. It's working as Joel Quenneville has wanted the entire time. We look all the way back to the preseason, and the first thing Quenneville had told us when he, had his camp opening press availability was he wants this team to be the hardest working in the NHL. And that showed up at the beginning of the season, and we didn't think too much about it after that because the rush game was working so well. And they kind of got away from the need to get pucks in deep and forecheck and all that sort of stuff because everything else was coming so easy. And once the rush game gets plugged up, I think McTavish phrased it as they got away from that. And I always question, like, well, if you know that it works, how do you get away from that? And, as you talk through it, you realize that they didn't have to. Things were working so well. And so they have to reestablish that. It doesn't happen overnight. Again, McTavish said this is the habits that need to be reinforced day after day after day. They build on each other. And even if you look back at the end of the losing streak, there were some of those games that weren't even close, right? But there were signs of improvement. There were signs of progression that things were going to come out of it. Particularly, I looked at the penalty kill, and I put this in my notebook last night, where the penalty kill over the last 7 games, I think they're 19 for 20, and they're 10 for their last. They were 10 for their last 10. This was all entering the game last night when they gave up the power play goal. But even then, they allow, I think it's 6 power plays for the Kings, and they kill 5 of them. The only one that goes in is the 5-on-3. All things considered, that's a good sign, a good bellwether for committing to those details and closing off the zones and getting your sticks in lanes and denying. And that's what happened. So in terms of the broad picture of how the Ducks have gotten out of this, that's what it is. It's the little details of the game that they have focused on and turned things around to reestablish a foundation that hopefully is something to build on going forward. Again, they will continue to be tested. Maybe not so much the Rangers in the same way because they are obviously in a funk. They had a huge win coming out of another statement letter from their GM, Chris Drury, about how guys are open for business and who's going to stay, and they have to retool. The drama continues in Manhattan, but it'll be at least a skills test to continue to apply what they've done here and not dumb it down for whatever opponent they're playing. And then from that point, it's league leading Colorado, which, as I mentioned, a test. I don't want to make it like the bar that it was the first time they played, when they were the top two teams in the league at that point. And could the Ducks be that team? They're not. And Colorado is finally maybe hitting a little skid. Maybe a good time for the Ducks to run into them, an opportunity to get one over on them. And after that, it's nothing but division games into the Olympic break. And I'll talk on the big picture of the Olympic break, of the division here in a second. But that is all important to keep these games rolling and establish themselves in that way. To some specific stuff of guys who have stepped up in that time, in the absence of Leo, Terry, Kreider, Cutter's lull. It is a veteran pickup in Mikael Granlund, and it's the phenom that keeps on giving in Beckett Seneca. I'll save Beckett for a second, obviously the highlight of it, but I think the most impactful guy in terms of keeping this ship on a steady course has been Mikael Granlund. I mentioned this if you watched the Victory Plus broadcast. It was my number one talking point for my intermission hit there. Thank you again for everyone for your kind words. Let the people know that you like that, and we can keep doing those on the television broadcast. But Mikael stepped into Leo's center position. He slid into that number one center role. Well, it's kind of a number two role now. I think Mason has put up there. But in terms of ice time, it's Mikael. He has been great on the faceoff dot, which is something that the Ducks have sorely lacked in recent years. And he's been pretty good at that all season, but to have him in that key role makes those faceoff wins even more important. He's playing on the penalty kill. He's playing on the power play. He's getting the key minutes at the end of games when they're trying to lock down these wins. And he's producing offense against Dallas. He was on the ice for every goal that the Ducks scored, directly assisting on Chris Kreider's goal. His shot created the chaos that Beckett Seneca stepped into to score against Dallas. Against the Kings, I don't know that he had as much offensive impact in the last two games, aside from, well, what am I talking about? He scored the overtime game winner last night, which, great shot by him, but the offense, I think, is running a bit through Beckett, who, I will touch on. But in terms of a pace setter, it's Mikael Granlund. And Beckett talked glowingly about him the other night. Mace McTavish did as well last night. Quenneville said that he didn't think that when they acquired him that he was necessarily under the radar, but I don't think anyone truly understood how impactful he could be, because he is a guy that can play every single role that they need right now, and they don't expect that to be an 82-game thing. He's not a number one center. But in a pinch like this, in a situation like this, he has stepped up and done more than his fair share, and he's going to be relied on heavily, as they go in through the next 10 games with Leo out for sure, and then we'll see where things land on the other side of the break. But huge confidence boost for him, and again, to keep this team on the straight and narrow. Now, the highlight package. Your 19-year-old that is doing things that 19-year-olds should not be able to do in this league, and not even from a skills perspective, not just a scoring and shooting and stick handling. That's not even what I'm talking about. It's the IQ side of the game. It's the knowing where to be at the right times, making those hard plays that a 19-year-old in the NHL doesn't even look to do, but Beckett Seneca is. I talked about it on the walk and talk that I did on social media last night, but that overtime goal is Beckett Seneca. That is him preventing the scoring chance on one end with a deft stick lift, and it's not even just the stick lift for me. It's the hustle to get back there. We're talking about the attention to details and covering your man. There's one of them. Getting back on D, lifting the stick, preventing what would have been a potential game-winning goal for the Kings with Fiala in behind everybody. And in one motion, lifts the stick, flicks the puck backwards, gets sauce on it, lifts it in the air out to where Granlund is at center ice, and Granlund gets to go. And at that point, you could say, hey, Beckett, you did your work. Good job. But he uses the momentum that he had from chasing back to turn around, beat Jackson Lacombe up ice to be the one-time option, which splits Drew Doughty's focus and gives Mikael Granlund the space to do that. That is instincts beyond his years. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion, especially over the last couple of days, because of some old social media posts from some Kings bloggers of whether Beckett was a reach, whether Beckett was a mistake at the time. And I think, you know, it's right to gloat if you want, because it's obviously working out for the Ducks' favor, but he was a reach at the time. This isn't something that like was now that controversial to say then, because he was. It has worked out tremendously for the Ducks, because not only, again, did he have that great play last night, but he's been an offensive dynamo. In the first game against the Kings, led the team in ice time, was getting double shifted a lot of the night, and was clearly the most dangerous player on the ice. Put up 2 assists, didn't score any goals. He has points in his last 5 games, 6 points in the last 5. I think it's now 8 points in the last 9 games. And then I think it's 9 points in the last 11 games as well. A lot of assists. He's creating a lot of offense. He's getting in the right spots. Beckett, to my eyes, and I checked the stats as well that kind of back this up. For all the electric surge that Leo Carlsson was, for as hot as Cutter Gauthier was with the goal scoring stick, as reliable as Troy Terry has been, you know, putting up the assists all year, Beckett Seneca is the most consistent scoring forward on the team. More so than those 3 guys, more so than Mason, more so than Mikael Granlund, more so than anybody else. There was in October, he obviously had this hot start where I think it was 5 points in his first 6 games. Then he had a 4-game stretch where he didn't record a point. Oh no, the kid that came in, scored his first NHL goal in his first game. Big smile, big eyes, the man-child phenomenon that it was to start. Oh no, there's a little slump. Maybe there was just a flash in the pan. Since then, he has not gone more than 2 games without recording a point all season. He is putting up points on a regular basis, consistently, where there has not been a recurred drought for him. He's now the, I have it tabbed up here, but he's the third player in Ducks history, third rookie, I should say, in Ducks history, with multiple 5-game point streaks in a single season. Paul Kariya also had 2. Bobby Ryan had 3. I don't doubt that Beckett will probably match that, maybe even break it by season's end, because he has been that much of a recurring force on the ice. Other notes on Beckett in terms of the stats. He is one of 2 Ducks players to have scored a point in each of their first 4 career games against the Kings. One is Beckett. The other, Matt Cullen in 97-98. That's a remember that guy type of name for all you Mighty Ducks followers out there. Beckett, and this is another set of stats here compiled by Patrick President of the Hockey News. Shout out to Patrick. Please follow him. He knows more about this game than any of us ever will in some regards. But he compiled Beckett's full stat lines from the 4 games against LA this year. Nearly 79 minutes of total ice time across the 4 games. So I don't know what the numbers are. It's almost 20 minutes a night over the course of the 4 games. 5 points in those 4 games, all of them assists, 24 shot attempts, 16 on goal. At 5-on-5, his analytic metrics, 50.3% of the shot attempts, 55.9% of actual shots on goal, and 58.3% of the expected goals while he's on the ice. It can't be understated how much of an impact player this kid is at 19 years old. And while there was certainly high hopes, we can all look back at where the rookie faceoff was when he came to camp, how he looked in the preseason. This kid did not look like he was ready to go. He did not look like he had the seasoning or the strength or the body control to play this NHL style of game night after night. You know, maybe he's going to get the 10 games to get the tryout. Maybe they were going to do some finagling to try to do the Shane Wright thing of having him up and then sitting him for a while to get him a conditioning stint, and then he'll go to World Juniors, and then he'll continue to develop elsewhere. He hasn't needed any of that. He has consistently gotten better day after day after day to where he is now been the Ducks' best player on the ice more nights than not. And again, from my eyes at least, the most consistent Ducks forward game after game after game. Can't say enough good things about the kid. I can blab on forever about Beckett, but he has really come into his own. And to see that this is just the tip of the iceberg for him, that again, he is 19. He has plenty of seasons left to go. And not only will he get better, but as his teammates around him continue to improve and grow and get older, whether that's Leo or Cutter or anybody, Mason, that will in turn fuel him as well. There's a superstar on the Ducks' hands, and it's Beckett Seneca. Who could have imagined that this would be the case? Just he's still 19 for now. He'll be 20 by the end of the month, if I remember right. His birthday is the 28th. So 10 days as of time of recording to still rack up all the records of being a teenager in the league. And he's doing it. 15 goals, 23 assists. He is second in rookie goals. He is second in rookie points. He is second in rookie assists. All behind, he's behind Demidov in points and assists. Demidov of Montreal, who is the guy that he's being compared to as the guys that were in the same draft class together. Demidov is a different kind of player. He's more dynamic. He is a lightning bug kind of guy. Beckett is obviously right up there in terms of points. And I think the top three of who's going to be in the Calder race by the end of it is kind of solidified. Demidov, Seneca, and Schaefer. Schaefer of the Islanders, it's hard to not give it to a defenseman that's playing the amount of minutes he is, the type of minutes he is, and still producing. We'll see how that lands at the end of things. But Beckett will be in that mix for sure. All right, last thing on the current state of play for the Ducks. The standings. As I mentioned, the next or 6 of the next 8 games are against the Pacific Division. They just had this back-to-back with the Kings, which were the most critical games of the season. If the Ducks had lost these 2 games, they'd be in dire straits, and we'd be having a way different conversation today than we would have just a few days ago. But despite them being dragged to overtime by the Kings, who lead the league in games played in overtime, 20 of them, lead the league in overtime losses, 13 of them. The Kings have 19 regulation win or 19 wins total. They have, where's the stat here on the screen? The Kings have 12 regulation wins and 13 overtime losses. They have more overtime losses than actual wins. And yet they are tied with the Ducks and the Sharks and the Seattle Kraken at 51 points for the 3rd place in the Pacific Division and also the 2nd wildcard spot. Those 4 teams tied for those 2 positions right now. It's disgusting that the Kings still get to hang around at this point. And to wrap up on them and not to linger too much on the Kings, I am so grateful that was the last Ducks-Kings game of the season. I cannot stand watching LA Kings hockey. This is not I hate the Kings thing. This isn't a rooting bias. This is none of that. This is me as a hockey reporter having to watch hockey games and analyze styles of play. I cannot stand watching the LA Kings play hockey. And I'm glad that that's behind us for now. If this ends up being a playoff series, if the Ducks and Kings meet in the playoffs for the 2nd time in their franchise's histories, I don't know how most people are going to survive that one. That either by boredom or heart attack, one of the two, maybe both at the same time. But that's the Kings. They're done. So again, to recap the standings, Seattle Kraken currently at 51 points. This is as of Sunday midday. Seattle 51 points. Ducks will be in Seattle on Friday, and they also play Seattle in the last game before the Olympic break in February. The Sharks also 51 points. Utah is up there in this first wild card, 54 points, just to keep them in the mix. San Jose 51 points. Seattle and San Jose have a game in hand on both the Ducks and Kings. Ducks 51 points. Kings 51 points. The Ducks and Sharks both have 24 wins. Seattle has 21 wins, 9 overtime losses. Ducks and Sharks only have 3 overtime losses. The Kings, as mentioned, have more than a mountain of overtime losses. Seattle is also, I believe, top 3 or top 5 in overtime games played this season. They are similar to the Kings in their style of play. A little frustrating. They have a bit more scoring punch. not that much more. So, and I did say that the Ducks are starting to do that a bit more too, but the Ducks still have the offensive talent to get these chances. What they need to do and not have what happened against the Kings, they can't let all these games go to overtime anymore. The division has been great about handing each other extra points, and that's why it's so close. Because even with that group of 4 at 51 points, Edmonton's at 56. A couple games ahead now, but not that far away. Should a winning streak continue or a losing streak befall the Oilers? Vegas is up there at 60 points. They finally got it together, but they're also feasting on. They're the second leading team in overtime games and overtime points, right behind the Kings. It's all tight. It's all tight. So, again, after the next 2 games, the next 6 leading into the break are Pacific Division games. Ducks' first game against Edmonton of the year, first game against Calgary. Those will be huge. Calgary has cooled off a little bit, but they're only 5 points behind that wild card group. Edmonton, as I said, is up there in the division. They get to play Vancouver. That's a must win with them being last place in the Western Conference now. That is there's the Ducks need to take care of their own house, take care of the division, and I think they're again coalescing into a more cohesive style of play, a simpler style of play, a very effective style of play to reset these foundations and move forward. So that's a lot of talking, a bit of a ramble. I know that I can do that, and that's because I don't have anyone to bounce off of. But we'll cut that there. Impressive the way that the Ducks have pulled themselves out of this. As I led off my story last night, they were falling into an abyss, and it was I had said in the multiple recordings that I had done up to this, and I'll touch on that in a second, that it felt more mental than anything else. That yes, there were some execution things, and obviously they were losing some of those games by big margins. And Mikael Granlund said that they weren't even getting these games to overtime, and so he was congratulating Beckett on the great play he made, but the streak goes beyond anything just beyond outside of that one play. It's again resetting those foundations to make this a real thing to move out from. But it felt like they were still close, and then a couple things would go wrong, and it would just all fall apart. And I say that that's a mental thing. Not that they're a fragile team necessarily, but they're still a young team that was trying to learn their way through this. Ryan Strome touched on it in very thoughtful conversations we had with him after the first Kings game, that there's silver linings to all this. It's about learning how to play the right way, and they're doing that right now. Each one of those guys said it yesterday. They're playing the right way. They're doing what they need to do. And with those top guys out, you don't want to think that the Ducks are not better for having Leo Carlsson out of the lineup. Let's be clear with that. But it is a shock to the system moment that says, okay, our number one guys are out, and we have to buckle down and learn how to play better. And they've done that. The goaltending has started to pick up. Dostal has been very good in the last couple games. Ville Husso got called up. And I think with the way that he's played, I don't know that Peter Mrazek can get that job back when he's healthy again. He's on IR still. Unclear what his timeline is. We had asked Joel Quenneville about that the other day, and there's nothing new there in terms of a more definitive look at things. But I'm curious what that looks like, and but from my perspective of things, I just don't know how they can send Husso back down. Like he's too reliable, too steady to just put back down. You need a steady, reliable backup goaltender. And Mrazek has had his good moments, but he's also had times where you just don't know, and that's not something you can live on. So that's a small point to end on. And actually, as I'm talking here, a little bit of Pacific Division news. It looks like Vegas has made another big acquisition, as they tend to do. Rasmus Andersson, the defenseman that had been the top of the trade market, is going to Vegas with a contract extension signed because, of course, let me just pull up the official report here. without a contract extension in place. So this could be a bit of a rental. But Rasmus Andersson, kind of a stay-at-home defenseman that people were. I know some of you out there had asked me if the Ducks should have been on that. It didn't sound like they were going to be. And with seeing that Vegas is the team that trades for him, like, of course, that's just the way things go. If there's a named quantity that is out there in the trade market, Vegas is going to look for it, especially if they need something to bolster them up. So that's just that. But does it move the needle a whole lot? I don't know. I don't think it's somebody that the Ducks were going to be targeting. I don't think that they wanted to give up whatever assets that were going to be needed to give that up. Again, for a guy inside the division, I haven't seen what the actual return is yet. I don't think that's out there. But I'm curious how that goes. Won't touch on it too much right now because it simply just doesn't mean too much to me personally. Like, Rasmus Anderson's a good player. He'll help Vegas for sure. They're a team that has their own defensive woes, especially goaltending woes, more like it. But we'll see. Anyway, that's that. And well, the Ducks move on. Huge slate of games here to close out the Olympic break. Okay, so a bit of a intro here just to set up the mailbag because we are now, obviously, I'm recording this on January 18th, this first portion of the podcast. This is now the fourth time that I've recorded the podcast. And the mailbag that you're going to hear in a second was the second time I recorded the mailbag to update things. I'm not going to re-record the mailbag. I feel like things are still in place for most of those answers. And if they're not, for whatever reason, there's obvious reasons why, and that's that it's been recorded a couple times, and I at this point it simply needs to just get out there. Why hasn't it been recorded? Why are we delayed on this? Why is the first of the month mailbag coming out on the 18th? The easiest way to say it is just the schedule has been absolutely brutal this season for the players and also for us in the media. It's kind of nonstop. I haven't had the time to sort of breathe and do some of the things that I've wanted to do with my coverage. I wanted to do some more features and more stuff with the video than just simply the day-to-day of what goes on. And I know that's very important, especially in a market that is undercovered like Anaheim. To have us there every day is important. And I think that's still the top line thing I need to be doing. But I also wanted to kind of sink into this a bit more, and I haven't had the chance to do that. And some of that too is with the podcast. So the relentless nature of things kind of led to just simply burnout. And that's not that I don't enjoy going to the games or I don't enjoy doing this job as much as it is. It's just, for some of you that know, there's a lot of, it's a lot of work. I treat this like a full-time job. I have a lot of support for that, and I'm very grateful to everyone in my life that helps me continue to do this as I'm doing it. But it's a lot of work. It is very much a grind for, at this point, as somebody that's still trying to establish themselves in their career, not a lot of tangible return. And that's not on you guys, the watchers, the viewers. Obviously, I'd love to have more of you. Obviously, I'd love to have more people reading the stories, that in turn, more clicks for that means more for me, or more people on the Patreon, which again in turn means more for me. Of course, I want that stuff. I'm not sitting here begging for that. I'm just explaining that it's where things are in my life, my career. There's a lot of other things going on that makes it hard to sometimes do everything that you need to do when you know that there's not going to be a whole lot of benefit to it at the end. The benefit, of course, is just doing the job and getting myself out there and doing that stuff. But there is just a toll that gets taken when you're worrying about plenty of other things. Just life stuff, nothing crazy. There's no like major illnesses going on, or I'm not losing my house or anything. It's just, it's a struggle portion of life that we're all trying to go through. And I think everyone has their own struggles, and mine has been just burnout. And you get caught up in some other things, or you delay on working on something, and all of a sudden you've got a pile of 3 things that are behind you. And then there's with the way the schedule goes, there's another day, and another day. And you either forego the immediate to get rid of the old stuff, or you don't complete the old stuff to take care of the new stuff. And one way or another, there's a pile in front of you, there's a pile behind you, and it's just hard to wrap your head around all that. So this has been delayed a little bit. I'm working on it now. We're getting it done. We're getting it out there. There will be another mailbag in short order. So, if you feel that some of these answers are a little outdated on the hockey side of things, I sincerely apologize for that. I try to do my best to keep on top of this stuff, but it can be a lot, especially as, I'm one person in this job trying to do a lot of different stuff. If you follow me everywhere, that there's a lot that goes into all this. And I'm one guy trying to do it all. And, I don't have high level skill in some of the technical things like editing and some of it a lot of this just takes more time than I thought it ever would. And I was always like, well, why don't people just do more? Well, there's clearly a reason that people don't do as much. So, I'm trying my best, and I hope everyone appreciates that. And, I'm pretty hard on myself when it comes to keeping up with this and doing a good job and fighting off the imposter syndrome and plenty of other things that go on with, mental health and all that. But I'm here. I'm doing it. I'm still going to the games every day. I'm still going to practice every day. As I said, I'm going to be on the road with the team, which again is a thing of there's a lot going on when it comes to traveling. Takes up a good portion of the day. But I also have found that it gives me time to work on stuff. So I think the road trip will be good for my creative process and my work process to, again, make this bigger and better and so on and so forth. So a lot of rambling. Get this out of the way. Here's the mailbag. I go into a lot of the hockey stuff. Take care of the Patreon first, of course. And again, through all this, I can not be more grateful to the Patreon subscribers during this portion of the year. It's, just mid-season. There's a lot going on. Like I said, it's a grind. And I appreciate all you out there. There's hockey questions, and I really implore you to stick around for the fun stuff because there's some fun stuff that I have a lot of passion to talk about. So get into that and so much more in the mailbag. So let's go to past Zach opening up the year-end, New Year, January mailbag. We'll open up the Ducks in Deep mailbag. Remember, the only way to guarantee your questions get answered in this mailbag is to subscribe on Patreon. As I said before, the Patreon support means so much to making this work, more reliable, more frequent, and just better. It goes directly into feeding this coverage, whether it's technology. I have a new toy here that I'm going to try to work with on the upcoming road trip. And of course, as I said, just trying to do more road coverage, and that helps us get there. So Patreon is one way to support that. And the main perk is being able to ask your questions in the mailbag. Guaranteed answers, full answers, and in some cases, direct questions to the players and coaches, because I can take what you ask me, and if I don't have a great answer, I'll take it to them. So let's go into the Ducks in Deep mailbag. And we'll start with Doug, who's been a day one Patreon subscriber. Thank you, Doug, for all your support here in these first few months. Doug says, first of all, thank you for getting rid of the Cronin picture on here. Much appreciated. I did take that out, and I've put up pictures of myself with interviewing Joel Quenneville and my quick hit on Victory Plus, which, again, thank you for everyone for the kind words from the last game that the Ducks played in LA. It wasn't the best circumstances, and even I got off to a rocky start, but I feel like I got through it, and I appreciate the kind words of everybody, and hopefully I can get to do that soon here. We're trying to work on something, I think, but no promises. I don't want to commit Ali Lozoff and the Victory Plus crew to things they haven't agreed to yet. So anyway, thank you. Going into the Wild game on the 2nd, that was now 10, 12, or 12 days ago, the Ducks had the 24th ranked power play, 27th ranked penalty kill. I think the power play got a little bit going on the road trip. The penalty kill has been better, and we'll get to that. Both special teams coaches, Jay Woodcroft and Ryan McGill, have had incredible success coaching these units in the past. I realized Joel Quenneville said special teams would be a year-long project, but neither seems to be improving as the season goes along. They seem to be getting worse. I ask again, this is not the first time Doug has put this question forth on a mailbag. Where's the disconnect between what the coaches are saying and what the players are doing? I think there's a lot of things that go into this. I think the messaging is there. I see the work being done. It's a matter of finding the personnel and having them execute it properly. The main problem with the power play continues to be setting up in the zone. And funnily enough, without the top guys on the power play unit against Dallas, it almost looked like they were more committed to playing a no frills, get it in and set up game, and worked. They didn't score on the power play, but they had some really good looks. And the power play had kind of got clicking before on the trip. And the penalty kill has actually been fairly good. So I went through this and I don't really have a good solid answer myself. So I took these questions to Joel Quenneville in a kind of a paraphrase, but I asked him at Morning Skate the other day, what is he seeing from those units? And then I followed up with, is there a difference in the messaging and the execution or vice versa on both the power play and the penalty kill? And here's what Joel had to say.
On the whole this season, the penalty kill maybe not where you want it to be, but a couple good outings on the trip. What have you seen from that unit as it kind of develops here and what Coach McGill is putting in?
I think our penalty killing's been good here in this last little while. I think it's kept us in games. It gives us a chance to win. We've had some new guys that have been doing it here recently, in and out, and without any experience, have come in and showed that whatever it takes to kill it, we're going to try to find a way. But I've been happy with the way the penalty killers have been going about it, and I think that our power play's been all right. I can't blame it in either. I think we absorb all the different areas. I think that the part that we get the timing of the mistakes of whether it's a turnover or a poor decision, that's what we got to clean up.
When it comes to the things on the special teams, whether it's good or bad, with the penalty kill, do you feel that that's the players stepping up, or is that the messaging getting through, and vice versa on the power play? Is the messaging not getting through them, or they're not executing?
No, I think messaging's been receptive in both ways, giving and taking. And I think that the personnel it's a good opportunity for them for their games as well. But I think everybody's trying to push for more. Everybody wants to play on a PP and a PK. Enhances their ice time at the end of the night. I feel players feel the same way that we do as a staff, that the more they play, the better they're going to play. So everybody pushes for those opportunities. So we value that the importance of it. And usually a lot of nights it's a difference. But we had a good night on this trip here where it looked like we had dominated special teams and we come out on the short end. So it's I think we got to keep all aspects in our game basically consistent, that their importance are equally weighed, and make sure that the things that we can be cleaner at, neater at, that's the little details that probably we can't overlook. That's got to be emphasized as right now highly important.
So as you see, I think there's work being done there. I think they like sort of what's going on there, and they are seeing improvement. So that's kind of where I'll leave that. I can't get into the heads of these guys as much as I want to ask them questions. I can't get into the meeting rooms with these guys and what they're actually talking about and how to execute. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes when just as they build off. And I think they've got a good foundation here over the last week. Again, all of this is about taking the good stuff and pulling that forward and seeing how that improves. Bonus question from Doug. Why do the Ducks defensemen struggle so much in front of their own net? The lack of physicality and seemingly refusal to tie up sticks is noticeable and has not been addressed on the ice all season. This has been a personal gripe of mine over the course of the season. It's a part of the way the defense has chosen to play. They don't want to necessarily get tied up in front because they want to be able to leave their man to go try and challenge shots, block shots. The problem is when they do that, they either leave too early and a guy is wide open in front to be passed around, or if they don't block the shot, then there's a guy wide open in front of the net for a tip and a rebound and so much more. They've shaded a little bit on that. It's hard to ask some of these guys about stuff like that where it's like, hey, are you focusing on net front defense? And they'll say, well, yeah, it's the most important place in the ice. Of course we're focusing on it. Without, and as much as everyone wants me to turn around and be like, well, you're not, it's not exactly a good relationship to have with a guy in the room. Not to say that I won't ask the questions if they're tough, but if they say they're going to work on it, then I don't want to get in there and get guys into gotcha questions. What I do is I have a question, I ask it, I let it out there, and if it's a good or bad answer, it's not necessarily my place to judge them on that answer. I can ask more questions as the time goes on and be like, okay, that was your answer. All right, we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. And if there's still not a fix on it, then I go back and ask again. But I ask a question, I leave it out there, and if it's a good answer, then people will be satisfied with it. If it's not a great answer, then people can have their displeasure about it. And I think that's a right thing to do in an open discussion like this is that. So when it comes to that, I mean, if the zone scheme is working, it's not a problem. But there's been plenty of times where it hasn't worked. So again, something they're working on. I think you're seeing guys pay a little more attention to that in front, but keep an eye on it too. And if that's not a sufficient answer for me, or if you don't see the sufficient results, please feel free to ask it again next mailbag, and we'll check in on it for both of those questions, really. So thank you, Doug, for the kind words in your note and for your questions every month and for your support. Continuing on Patreon, Mitch asked, what is your favorite piece of hockey memorabilia you own, including jerseys? So I'm not a big, when I was a kid, I had trinkets. I got the giveaways, and I got bobbleheads and, not dolls, but figures of players and stuff. I called one of them dolls because they were I had a Paul Correa and a Mario Lemieux, and they were taller and they had fully articulated joints, but they also had cloth jerseys and pants and socks. So they didn't feel like action figures. They didn't have the mobility of an action figure. So I wasn't also a big autographs guy. It's only now that I've gotten older and there's some separation from some of that stuff that I see some of the things I had or didn't or still do, and they're in boxes. I have collections of media guides I love. I collected every Ducks media guide for years until they stopped printing them, and now they're all digital, which is a little disappointing for someone like me, but I love those things. I reference them sometimes when I need to, particularly about some old stuff that seems lost to time. There was arguments about the Mighty Ducks actual colors during the 30th anniversary because they kept calling it plum. And I'm like, people, it has never been plum. I don't know where they got this from. And it has also never been teal. I don't know where they got that from on labeling some of the merchandise teal. But you go back into the books and it's purple and jade. And we always said, well, what about eggplant? I even asked Guy Bear that one time. And that's something that it's not like a Mandela effect. They called it that internally, at least some of the players did. But officially in the guides, it was always purple. So there's that stuff. But I'm a jersey guy. And I mean, you see these rotate all the time. This one over here, my Team North America World Cup jersey from, it was the 2022. When was that World Cup of hockey? A while ago. My God. This is my favorite, one of my top 3 favorite hockey teams of all time. There will always be the Ducks Stanley Cup team or the 03 Magical Run J.S. Shiger team, but non Anaheim, this is an awesome one. And I always wanted the jersey because that was just such a great collection of players. Some of my favorite hockey watching memories that I can just inject in my veins for some adrenaline, or some of these Team North America highlights. The under 23, for those that don't know, when they brought back the World Cup, they put together an U23 squad of the best players from America and Canada to try to spice up that tournament and fill in a hole because they were only using NHL players, and not every European country, for example, had enough players. So they made a Team Europe that was an amalgamation of the other countries, if you will. And then to fill in one more spot, the Young Guns team, this Team North America. And I always wanted that jersey, and my girlfriend got it for me for Christmas one year, and I just sort of given up on ever getting it. And when I opened the box, it was the most, she tells me all the time, it's the most reaction I've ever given to a gift that I've gotten from her. I'm not a very good gift receiver. I kind of open a box and go oh yeah, cool. And that's just not enough. Or I'll guess what it is before it comes out of the box, and that's just a problem I have. But yeah, this is great. I have, I think, every Ducks jersey that's ever existed except for a couple. So Yeah, it's jerseys are my thing, but not just Ducks jerseys. A lot of throwbacks, international jerseys, USA, Canada, old Washington Capitals, old Phoenix Coyotes. I don't like when it comes to favorites. Again, there's the Screaming Eagle Capitals is one of my faves that I own, and I have a bunch of Holy Grail jerseys that I want to get at some point, but there's also just not enough room in my tiny apartment closet for all that stuff right now. Some of my jersey collection is in a box in the garage, unfortunately. But I think when the Olympics come around, and I'm gonna try to do some content there to switch out some of the Ducks stuff. We'll find some of the international jerseys I have and see if we can't add those. But jersey guy, that's kind of my thing. All right, rounding out the Patreon, we have Cynthia, who asks, if you'll indulge me, I have 2 questions. Sure, why not? You're a Patreon subscriber. You're here. I'm here to indulge. There was, at least in my unimportant opinion, every opinion of my Patreon subscribers is important. How dare you, Cynthia? You're one of the greats. A tremendous improvement the way the Ducks played on New Year's Eve. Again, these questions were asked. End of the year, start of the month sort of situation. In comparison to the previous games, have you seen adjustments made at practice, or do you think they are just hungrier for a win now? I certainly thought that at the time, that New Year's Eve game felt like they were ready to finally get over the edge. They had that Sharks game the day before where they outshot them 42-13. That's what I'm talking about earlier. Like when it was through that losing streak, there was that Sharks game where it's like, how did they not win that? Defensive bungles is how, but they should have outscored the problem somehow, and they didn't. The Tampa Bay game was a tight checking game. They took it to OT. Like that was as close as they got, and they just couldn't get over the edge. They eliminated 3 leads in that game. That was a hard effort that they just couldn't get through. Even the next game against the Wild, while it ended up being, was that a 5-2 result? That was one that was, again, just super tight game. And I don't think the Ducks made a lot of huge mistakes in that game, but the Wild were playing so perfectly that night, and they're just a really great team at this point. The little mistakes they took advantage of and scored on. And that, I don't think there was anything terrible that the Ducks did, but it was still a thing of like, man, what is it going to take to get over this hump? And then it spiraled out from there. The next few games were not good. And I think that was maybe a hangover from, we just played a week of games where we were so close to getting back into the groove and it just didn't happen. So then that kind of spiraled. And even though they scored first in the next 3 games, didn't turn out to be anything. So I think when it comes to playing hungry, you saw that last night. They were a desperate team needing a victory, especially without their top guys. They needed to play a certain way, and they got it. When it comes to being a hungrier team, that matters, especially as they get into these important games, these tight games. The league, the standings, everything is just shrinking tighter and tighter. And being the hungrier team some nights is all you need to get over the hump. And it doesn't matter if you're more talented. It doesn't matter if you're playing better. If you can be a hungrier team, pounce on mistakes, make the other team pay, you can come out on top. So that's certainly something that I think we've seen this team start to develop an instinct for. Her second question, personally, without having to name names, do you find certain Ducks players easier to have an interview with than others? It seems that some love to give you honest and thoughtful answers while others seem annoyed. That is just the nature of pro sports. I think hockey players are interesting in some ways because I think every sport has different situations of how you talk to guys and what the parameters are for when reporters are in the room and what you're asking. And certainly different markets get different results as well. I think the Ducks are not unique in that way where there are guys that some are just really good interviews. They're thoughtful or they're willing to go long. Other guys, it doesn't make them, bad or annoyed, but they just give shorter answers or they don't really have any big thought. They're like, man, I just come in here and I do my job and I like to play. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Some guys are more entertaining, but that's any group of 25 guys from different backgrounds and different spots and different ages. It's always going to be different. So, you don't want me to name names, and I'm not necessarily going to point out anybody that I feel like is annoyed by us because I don't want to make them more annoyed. But I think there's some guys that really do give thoughtful answers. I've really enjoyed speaking to, especially during this losing streak, Alex Killorn. He's part of the leadership group, and we always get Radko Gudas for the truly awful nights. He'll go out there and face the music. And that's a great thing for a captain to do. But sometimes, I got a little frustrated maybe that we were getting some similar answers, and that's just the way it kind of went. And I wonder if that would have mattered who we talked to, honestly, just because of how the games were going. But it was nice to get a different perspective. And I think Killorn, really thinks about the questions when we ask them to him. And he challenges me a little bit when I asked the other day, it seems like the same issues are recurring night after night. And rather than just sort of accepting that and going along, we just said, what issues? And it wasn't like what issues? It was just, what issues? And I held my ground, as it were, and I responded and said, the turnovers and losing guys in transition. And he said, yeah, okay, yeah, and gave a full answer. Who else? I think Chris Kreider is a super interesting dude to talk to. He has been a breath of fresh air to come to the room, and sometimes he gets a reputation of being hardened by the New York media or not being a good interview. I've enjoyed every interaction I've had with him, and maybe it's because there's not 13 of us trying to tear him down every game. But if it's just, there's been a couple times where it's just been me talking to him, and I've really enjoyed it. I think Lucas Dostal is a great interview, a little soft spoken, but that's not bad. I turn up the volume on the recording, and that's all right. Dusty's good. I love talking to Leo. Leo's a cool guy. I think Cutter's answers have been so interesting because they've morphed a bit. Last year, there was a lot more confidence, and you want to call it cockiness or swagger. But some of that also came with some media training because he's obviously been in some tough situations. So sometimes the answers were a little formulaic, but now I think he's gotten a more realistic dose of the NHL. So some of that has worn off a little bit. And I think he's another guy that if you ask him the right questions, he'll think about it pretty well and give you a good answer. I think that is part of all this too. What I just said is you got to ask the right questions to some of these guys. Sometimes they just don't respond. Or if you're asking hey, how's it feel? Hey, what do you need to do? They'll give you the bullet points and they'll talk you through it. And then that's sort of annoying. But it's what we do as beat reporters is we're there every day and we're building relationships with guys. And that is the key thing really to making a good beat reporter, making a good relationship in the room, and getting good answers is forming relationships, knowing how to talk to these guys, and asking the right questions to the right guys so that they will answer in a way that is satisfactory, that isn't, kind of boilerplate or run of the mill. And you're still going to get those because I even have the trouble of there's sometimes you go into an interaction, whether it's pregame or postgame, where it's this is a question I have to ask. It's not, I don't want to, it's just, you have to ask the question and then you get the simple answer. That's the nature of the business too. You just need to get guys on record with certain stuff and that happens. So not too beat up about that myself. Just the nature of the game. And I think the Ducks room is really good. There's not too many guys that I just don't want to talk to. It's again, and some of it's situational, there's guys that you need some days and some guys you don't need some days, and that's the way it goes. So not to belabor it, but yeah, it's all about the relationship in the room. And I think I have a good relationship with the guys for the most part. I don't think anybody's has a bad attitude towards me yet. At least I don't think so. I haven't been denied any interview requests, on a personal level. So there's a positive for you. But that's our Patreon questions. Again, thank you so much to everyone for subscribing on Patreon. I'm so grateful for that. And I extend my gratitude by opening up these mailbags and letting you get full, complete answers to every question. And if you want your questions answered and you want them answered in full, subscribe to the Patreon at patreon.com/Zach Cavanagh. And that allows me to, again, invest in the coverage and give you better Ducks coverage, more direct coverage, more conversational between myself, the guy who's in the Ducks room, and you guys, the ones out there watching and enjoying the team. So thank you again for everyone on Patreon. All right, let's get into the rest of the social questions. I've broken this up into two different sections. There's the hockey stuff, and then there's the fun stuff. I tried to make this a more wide open mailbag so we can have some fun to kick off the new year. And I still want to do that because I think some of this is fun and again gets more personal interactions between me and you and everybody. So we'll go to some of the hockey ones. We're going to run through some of these because again these might be a little outdated, And, just I want to give the due to the Patreon people, but I also want to answer some questions. Don't answer every question that comes through on the socials, but let's give it a run here. All right. So we'll go to some of the Instagram questions, and we'll start with Jimenez21 asked Mrazek instead of Husso. This was back when Mrazek had still been on the team. He's now injured, of course, and Billy Husso has been up. He says, I get our defense needs to improve, but 5 goals on 20 shots. Again, it was a rough period for sure. Billy Husso is in. He played one game on the trip. I think it was it the Carolina game? Yeah, right after he got called back up. And he played really well, I thought. And I think he's kind of a secret like spark plug when he's in the net. So he'll probably get some run here in the back-to-back with LA. Curious to see which game he plays. I think Peter Mrazek is a great dude. I've enjoyed talking to him, but he's had some good starts in there, but it's just sort of clear that he's not consistent enough right now that you can rely on him being the backup. When Dostal had his rough spell, which, is going to happen. Maybe it was rougher than we thought it was going to be, but you want somebody in there that's going to be just as much of a spark plug, just as reliable. And Husso has been that. So I think, they were able to negotiate the waivers of it all and the IR that everybody was dealing with in mid-December, and maybe guys got rushed back quicker. We don't know that for sure. I'm not reporting that, but it certainly felt like that, right? I have a feeling, this again, no direct information on this, but when Mrazek gets healthy again, and we'll see when that is, like if this, maybe they just run it out into the Olympic break. We have no idea what's going on with Mrazek right now, just that he's on IR, no designation. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a much tougher decision this time around than it was the first time, where they were again dealing with, they're right up against the threshold of games and waivers and all that. I think it might be a tougher decision this time, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Billy Husso that sticks up with the team, but that's just me. Moto X Junkie on Instagram asked, how does Anaheim lose so much progress and momentum over a small Christmas break? It's a lull in the season. I think we talked about it a bit, but it's just it's an up and down. They've all called it a learning period. It's just a matter of, did they learn these lessons, and will this repeat? Hopefully not. I really don't think it will. I do like the mindset that everybody has about what this stretch was. And the lessons that I think they've articulated, some of the lessons they've learned, whether it was the defensive efforts or just the night in, night out, shift to shift efforts. I think there's a good base there, and I think they're going to come out of this just fine. So again, something to track. Kuya Kirk asked, does it seem our defense is more focused on scoring than playing actual defense? Now, this is something that Olin Zellweger touched on with me a bit. And this, again, goes into the turnovers and the odd man rushes. It's not necessarily the team being focused on scoring. They wanted to just play fast and get out of the zone quick. But what would happen is there would be these turnovers at the blue line or in the neutral zone, and the defense was already getting up the ice. And before they could, realize what was happening, the puck was coming back the other way. And now all of a sudden they were caught flat-footed, or there was a guy behind them, or whatever it was. And Zellweger called that out specifically of, making sure everybody's in front of you, not getting caught on those turnovers, not making the turnovers in the first place. So again, a lesson that's being learned while the team wants to play fast. And I don't think that they were more focused on scoring than playing defense, but as a mindset, they were just looking up ice and not anticipating the worst possible things to happen. And sometimes they did. So that's what that was. Again, not something that I'm worried about too much after the other night, but we'll see how that goes. we continue on Instagram with Jeggings is not the name. Okay. Is it just me, or has Ross Johnston been the best Duck of the past 10 games? And this was probably 5 games ago. Ross has been extremely consistent, and he was great last night. He's a great forechecker. He's become a very reliable bottom 6 guy, and that's not something that we expected out of Ross. He's hit a career high in points. I'm pretty sure he's hit a career high in games played in a season at this point. He's been great. I have no complaints about Ross. I think on even on the perfect day, when the roster is completely, everybody's healthy and everybody's, even considering guys in San Diego, your Sam Colangelo's, I still think Ross Johnston shouldn't be playing every game. I think for the betterment of this team in the long run, I think you want more speed and tenacity and some scoring touch. But Ross has showed he can play this style. He showed a bit of an ability to forecheck and find the puck and make a good pass to find guys. So that's there too. I don't want to take this away from Ross because he's been very, very good, but I still think on a perfect day, he wouldn't be in the lineup every night. And I also think that he might tell you that himself. Based on the discussions we had with, I talked to him in the preseason, he knows what his role is. He knew what his role was going to be. He didn't expect that he was going to be an impact guy. He knew that he would be called on for certain things at certain times. And there are still times that you want a Ross-style player in the lineup, certainly, against a bigger team, more physical team. But he's proven a worthy player this year. And that simply just hadn't been the case in previous seasons. And I completely understand the preconceived notions that everybody had about him, because I had them too. And he's been quite a healthy surprise. And that's been good to see. Best player, most consistent, I still think it's Beckett Seneca has been the Ducks' most consistent player, game 1 to game 46, 47, whatever we're at now. But Ross has been really solid. I cannot knock on Ross Johnston right now. He's been great. Scene84 asks, any leans on what Leo, Cutter, others extensions might look like? Cutter told Andrew Knoll of the Register 2 weeks ago that they hadn't had any discussions, him and his agent, with the team about contracts. I imagine that's the same with Leo. Maybe there could have been a window for discussion at the Olympics, maybe. But Leo's obviously going to be over there, so he's not going to have time to talk about numbers. And maybe something can get done with Cutter there. Again, this is all just speculation on my end. Hopefully we get to talk to Pat Verbeek in a little bit. I had asked for him earlier in the week, and it sounds like we might get him maybe closer to the Olympic break. And we can maybe knock down some things there. But we'll see how that goes. As far as numbers, I think Leo's number was rising rapidly, as was Cutter's. I think maybe they've kind of tailed off a bit, and so that number is not going to be necessarily as sky high. But Leo at least will be offered, I imagine, a full 8-year deal to lock him in as long as possible. Cutter, I would imagine, maybe not the full 8, maybe more like a 5. I think a 5 sounds right for Cutter. 5 years, not millions of dollars. I don't really have a handle on contract dollar figures, so I'm not going to speculate one there. But as far as length, I think Leo gets a max 8, and I would speculate Cutter would get a 5. But that's just pure speculation. No extra, insight there. But that's my feeling, just gut feeling. And then lastly from Instagram, Scuddy Ariel asked, are fans able to watch morning skate practices at Great Park or just reporters media? So this is something that gets asked all the time. And I'm going to try to be better about on certain days sharing the practice information. Morning skates are generally not open to the public. Morning skates on game days are at Honda Center usually. And practices on non-game days are down at Great Park Ice, and those are open to the public. Those are usually at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. Always depends. We don't necessarily know until the day before. The practice schedule can be kind of in flux. So if you ever want to go to a practice or want to know if there's one open, check either my Twitter feed or Derek Lee's Twitter feed. We're always putting that information out there. Or if we haven't, simply ask. Contact on one of the platforms. I will answer your questions if I have an answer to it. There's plenty of people that have reached out. I mean, Scuddy asked out here, and I replied on Instagram immediately. But yeah, if anybody ever wants to come to a morning skate or a practice, I should say, morning skates get off limits. Practices on non-game days are open. So let me know, and you can come by, watch the team, say hi, and get an inside look at what the Ducks are doing on making themselves better every day. We'll roll into the Twitter portion of the hockey portion of the mailbag here, and we'll start with Andrew Burla, who has a couple ones here, but we'll run through them quick. How do you hold assistant coaches accountable for special teams? Kind of building off of the answer to Doug in the Patreon portion. What we do, we don't get to talk to the assistant coaches directly. That's just the Ducks policy. It's kind of been the same before. I know other teams do this, but I do know that this comes from Quenneville and the idea of wanting to everybody to stay on one message coming from the top down. So we have to go through Quenneville to talk about how the special teams are doing. So that's how we keep them accountable. We just have to ask the questions and ask Quenneville and kind of needle when we need to. And I think we have. I think if anything over the last couple seasons, the number one thing that Ducks media is attuned to is harping on the special teams. I know the players at times last year, I could tell when we were asking about the power play, they would be a little bit like, oh, man, again with the power play. But obviously it was a steady question last year, and it's been less of, but still something that we keep track of quite regularly with how volatile it can be. And the penalty kill too. Penalty kill is just hard. Power play, I think we can see a bit more what's going on. Penalty kill is just purely results. And if they're getting the kills, you're like, oh well, hey, it's okay. But some of that's goaltending, some of that's bad luck, some of that's a bunch of stuff. So as far as keeping the coaches accountable, we talk through Quenneville, and that's kind of long and short of that. How can Coach Quenneville reignite the fun and motivation? Well, I think something that I took note of, like even throughout the losing streak, like obviously they were getting frustrated by the results, but I didn't feel the mood get down too bad until the latter stages. I think early on, even when they were at 5 or so, it was sort of like you would go into the room and I think there was good days and bad days, but there were more good than bad. I felt the motivation was good. I felt that they were still having fun coming to the rink and all that stuff that they've talked about as a difference from last year to this year. And certainly the vibes were much better on Tuesday night than they were previously. So I don't know that he has to do anything there to reignite the fun. It's just a matter of getting the team back on a winning streak, a winning form, and an offensive form. And I think once they start scoring goals, that's when they're having the most fun. And I think we talked about that they're on. It feels like they're on the precipice of kind of breaking through there again. And I mean, we'll see. The Kings games may not be the most offensive explosions, just because of the way they play and the way that they are playing right now. The Kings certainly need these points just as much as the Ducks and need to get back into a winning form just as much as the Ducks on their end of things. So fun and motivation, they've got it. That's not something that Quenneville needs to ignite. I mean, just his presence alone kind of does that. So I don't know that it needs to be reignited. Is it time to hold the leadership group accountable? These are all still from Andrew. I think we are. Last month we obviously got to talk to Radko Gudas a couple times during the unacceptable losses as they were deemed. And he's done a really good job. One of the things that he's done the best as a captain is when those big losses happen, he is the first one to, I feel like he goes and volunteers and says like, I'll speak for the team. Don't worry about, anybody else. And he's been good about that. But I made a point that when there was the first loss against Utah, he said was unacceptable and this shouldn't happen again this season. And then 2 weeks later, there was the Dallas game where they lost 8-3. And the first question I had to him was, hey, this is the second time in 2 weeks. You said last time it was unacceptable, that it wouldn't happen again. And here we are just a couple weeks later. What's up? What's the deal? And he came back with thanks for using my words. I couldn't tell. He was a little annoyed, I think, that I kind of fired that back at him, but that's what we have to do. They say these things, especially as a leader on this team, as a veteran, as a captain, and you got to hold them to what they say. And there was a little frustration there. But I think, that's just Radko. I think we've also done a good job in the media core here of trying to spread that responsibility a little bit, because as much as Radko is the face, we know that he's probably not going to be here that much longer in the long term of things. Even if he comes back for a year or something, he is not the long-term future of this team. And so we go throughout the leadership group. We talk to Alex Killorn more recently and he's been good about his answers and good about stepping up and talking to us. We talked to Ryan Strome, who's another one of the guys that has a letter on his chest more often than not, and Strome's always been good, and him and I have had some personal interactions in the locker room recently that just kind of stand out to me as him being a leader. I won't share the specifics of it, but he's somebody that, despite his struggles and the role that he's currently trying to fight through, that he is somebody that is trying to do the right thing and step up and give the right point of view on these things. So I think we're going through all those guys. I've made a point to talk to Leo, talk to Cutter, talk to Jackson, and Mason McTavish as well when things are going up and down, because these are the guys that are going to have to answer these questions sooner than later. I mean, now is the time that they're supposed to be coming together and taking the reins of this thing. So how do we is it time to hold the leadership group accountable? It has been, and we have. Go find those interviews after the Kings game last month. Talk to Killorn and Mason, and we kind of asked them some pretty pointed questions. And after the Wild game, we talked to Radko again. When they just got back from the road trip, talked to Alex Killorn, and then Leo Carlson and Olin Zellweger has been good about it too. But trust me, we're on it. That's not slipping by us. And then, which young player wants to make this their team? I had written a story, earlier in the year that it feels like this was Leo Carlson kind of taking the reins, right? And I feel like he's still a very hungry player, a wanting player. He wants to win. He wants to succeed here. Maybe more than anybody else in that room. And there's some guys that have plenty of motivation. But Leo, I think in my conversations with him and just sort of at least viewing him in the early parts of the season, that's the case. Now, he's obviously, like we mentioned, he's been dealing with something, in that lower body. And I know he wants to be better, and I know the team wants him to be better. Quenneville himself, when before they left for this last road trip, we had asked him about Leo's slump, and he said that he's the kind of guy that needs to lead us out of this slump. And he scored, late in that Buffalo game, that surge, and it felt like, okay, maybe there's some momentum going here. Obviously didn't play against Dallas, so hard to see how that would have tracked going forward. But I still feel like that's the case. I personally am of the opinion that whenever the time comes, I feel that Leo Carlson will be the captain of this team. I said it in the podcast. I cut it down into a TikTok and a reel and whatever. And I still believe that, because I think he has that winner's mentality, that he wants to be great. He wants to lead this group. He wants to score. He wants to win. And that is what you want from one of those young guys. I think Mason is poking around it. I think Mason could stand to do more in that regard, honestly. In terms of just dragging the team forward with his player, not even just his play, his production. Because I think there's been stretches where his line mates were producing and he wasn't, but it wasn't bad. But he's a guy that needs to step up a bit, and Jackson Lacombe too. He's supposed to be the leader of that D-corps right now, and he could stand to do a little more. But I still think it's Leo, 100%. Moving on to Derek Defani, who asks, thoughts on what the Ducks decide to do at the trade deadline. Buyers or sellers? My fear is that we are buyers and get older, not younger. Strome, Gudas, Vetrano, Trouba are not going to be part of the Ducks' future playoffs. Is it a good time to move? It's a good time to move on, in his opinion. Thoughts? My thought is, I don't think they'll necessarily be sellers. I mean, it really depends on what goes on through the next month, because I forget. I don't remember off the top of my head when the trade deadline is in relation to coming back from the Olympic break. But, I mean, what is there to sell? Like, obviously, you mentioned some of those older guys, but how much are you going to get back in that regard? Like, not to knock on any of those guys, because I do think that Strome has been effective, maybe not as productive as everybody wants, but he has been effective when he plays. Gudas has been up and down. And I also just don't think they're going to trade the captain with, just a month left on his contract at that point. If the Ducks are ready to move on from Gudas, I don't think it'll be a trade, because, again, what do you get out of that? Same with Vetrano. Vetrano's been too down this season to expect any good value to come back in a trade, and the contract is not messy, but it certainly complicates what you could or couldn't get for him. And you also list Trouba. I still think that Trouba's going to re-sign with the team. I think Verbeek likes him. I think he's settling into California life. He just had another child over the weekend, and I don't think that I think that the thing that we forget with these players sometimes is it's not always about the on-ice product. It's about the situation, like your life situation that you're in. And I always like the phrasing that Greg Wyshynski of ESPN uses, that these players, when it comes to like, oh, do they want to move? And it's like, well, no, they're going to stay. Why? Because that's where their stuff is. And hey, look, as somebody that is in a profession that would, in theory, require me to move around quite a bit if I got off the ground, that's just the way it goes. But you would rather not have to pack up all your crap and move it. And these, for guys like Trouba too, you start to like establish roots. In New York, he certainly established roots, and I know that was really tough on him to move, and he needed that off season to establish himself here and kind of get his new bearings and try to dig some new roots. And he has his wife and another child, and I know that she's still interested in the medical field. And I think if assuming Pat Verbeek wants him back, and I think he does, regardless of what everyone thinks of his on ice play, I think Trouba will be back. So when it comes to selling, I mean, of the guys you listed, it's really just Ryan Strome, and he's also the guy that is kind of been the odd man out some of these nights. For what reason, I'm not totally sure. So what do you get out of Ryan Strome? Well, can you get another bottom six guy to solid up? That's not what the Ducks need right now. So buyers or sellers, if they were going to do anything, I think they would buy. But I was on this before, and the losing streak here made me think about it differently, because it clearly the team is missing stuff. I think they're missing a right winger to kind of plug on Leo's hip, because that's been a rotating door. I think they need some sort of shakeup in the D-core. They have plenty of guys that are skilled and offensive and can push up ice, but they don't have somebody that's just a solid defenseman. And you would think maybe that's Jacob Trouba, but he's been a little inclined to jump into play as well. You'd think maybe that's Radko Gudas, but he is, he goes out there for hits. He tries to lead the group. He gets his nose in there. And Drew Hellison just has been, frankly, too unreliable to say that that's what his style of game is either. So they need a minutes eater that's just going to sit there and be sturdy and sort of anchor everything back there. As much as Jackson Lacombe plays a lot of minutes, he is a guy that pushes up ice. He can be great defensively, but he also is even better when he's in transition and moving the puck. So I think this team still needs stuff. So I think if I had to pick between the two, if we were going with a binary here, I would say buyers, because again, when we look at the standings, like they're still not that far out of it. But I also think there's merit to standing pat and not sacrificing any of your system to go get a guy right now. Because as much as everybody wants the team to make the playoffs and be successful, what is the ultimate goal out of that? Like, do you think the Ducks are going to go win the Stanley Cup right now? Do you think they're going to, ride that upset wave? Like, I just don't foresee that. And as much as they all think that, hey, once we get in the playoffs, anything can happen, I think to make a move based on that theory and sacrifice some of your current strengths or future assets, like anybody that's down in San Diego right now, or Roger McQueen. There was that a tweet that went around that Kiefer Sherwood's available, right? And this Canucks fan, I don't know if they were like a blogger or something, said, oh, Roger McQueen would be really nice. I was like, yeah, I'm sure he would. I'm sure everybody would like to have Roger McQueen in their system. But the Ducks aren't going to trade Roger McQueen for Kiefer Sherwood, first of all. And I don't think that they would trade him in the first place. I think they got him because they like him. They really like his upside. And he's rounded into form there at Providence, in the last couple months. So I don't think the Ducks are best served by trying to go out and make any sort of deadline move. Maybe they shed some of the weight come, the deadline, just to streamline things, and get, some meager assets back, some extra draft picks here or there. But I don't think there's any big move in the horizon. I just don't think that that's a mid-season thing that they need to worry about. But again, that could all change if things like if the Dallas win is not a sign of things to come and this thing continues to tumble, they will have to make some sort of shakeup, and that's when you would see a move. But buyers or sellers, I would just hold personally. Paul Rinder asked, "Are the Ducks this bad? Do we need a new defensive coach? Is there any progress?" Obviously, the Ducks are not this bad. I think the way that I described it was the Ducks were not as good as that 7-game win streak, despite how fun that was, and everybody wanted to believe. But the Ducks are also not as bad as this recent stretch. They are somewhere in the middle, and I think we can see that. I think we know that, like the save percentage and the shooting percentage was killing them. Like, it just, part of it is unluckiness. Part of it is just like, man, the bad luck cannot continue that way. But these are also guys they're better than that, and they will produce at some point. As Chris Kreider said when I asked him about his slump a couple weeks ago, he said, law of averages, you keep doing the right things and things will fix themselves. And in some ways that they have. And is there progress? Yes, I think there is. I think they're getting better. The defense, I think, again, the number one thing I took out of the other night was the defensive focus. And I think the system is okay. It's just those singular bad decisions that unravel the whole thing. And if these guys can just, get their heads on and play a no frills kind of game and just make sure that you cover your ass a bit, they'll be okay. They'll be all right. Do they need a new defense coach? They just got one. Like, this is the thing with, like, the Ducks in particular. Like, there's been a lot of turnover at those assistant coach positions. Like, the power play continues to fail. And it's like, well, okay. At a certain point, is it the coaching? Because you've gotten 3 different coaches. So is it, these guys don't have stable enough coaching to dig into that? Same thing on the defensive end. Like, there's been turnover there. I think the system is okay. And you can find stats here or there that say, like, oh, it's getting better, or oh, it's actually still terrible. And if you take the full season, it looks bad. But if you take the last one, there are so much, like, going into the analytics right now is just, especially over the stretch, is kind of weird and frustrating, because analytically you would say the Ducks have been better, but eye test wise, they certainly aren't. So what is the actual solution there? Again, I think it's somewhere in the middle. No time for a panic. It's, I know we have been in this the long haul. We have seen the totality of things, but you have to remember that this is a new coaching staff, a new focus, like a more, okay, we're moving forward here direction, and they need that time to sort of meld it together. Lucas Young on Twitter. We're still rolling through Twitter, almost done with the hockey stuff. Lucas Young asked, how long does GMPV wait to make a move? With Strome sitting almost every game, should the Ducks look to move him or try to get someone else to get Strome back in the lineup? I touched on this a little bit, but I think had the losing streak continued, I think there would have to be, right? The team needed something to shake them up. And honestly, I think the 3 guys going down before the game the other night might have been the thing that's like, okay, we got to shift our focus here. Again, we'll see how that goes rolling forward. Strome, again, I think Strome's been effective, and I would like to see him in the lineup more often than not. There's just some weird decisions going on with that bottom 6. Nestorenko going through waivers and then clearing and then not getting sent to San Diego and then staying up, but they still call up Tim Washy and Jansen Harkins in and out. Ross Johnston, again, has played very good this season, but how is he a staple on the 4th line? I think they're just trying things to see what sticks in that lower group. But I would like to see Strome still play, because I think he can be effective and a useful guy, and obviously a great guy in the room. So I don't know. I kind of answered all that in a previous question. I maybe should have not doubled up, but that's my thought. Anyway. Last one on the hockey side of things. Tyler Robles asked, are the Ducks legitimately a playoff team this year? We thought so. They have some room to grow now, certainly. Legitimately, I mean, even going into the year, we thought it was, I had said it was borderline. I didn't think they were going to get in to open the year, just because it seemed like there were too many teams in the way. And, you know, to the Ducks' credit, they started off really awesome, and a lot of those teams simply didn't. You know, your Vancouver is down. Calgary had a real rough opening, and now they're kind of on the way back up. Winnipeg is obviously terrible, and nobody saw that coming. So the positive is that there's a lot of teams in the middle. The negative is there's a lot of teams that are in that mix. So are the Ducks legitimately a playoff team? They can be. I think we saw with some of that streak that, again, I don't think that they're as good as the streak was, but there is something in this team and there's something in this coaching staff that shows there is a path forward and there is a window there. And can they do it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the talent is there. I think they're more talented certainly than a lot of those teams that are in this mix. And they're further along in the development than some of the teams that are surprising right now in that mix. So time will tell. I think I think this stretch going into the Olympic break is just unbelievably massive. Like, these games against LA are huge in terms of, you know, going against a team that's right, as Joel Quenneville said, in that airspace. They're all sharing the same, you know, position right now. And then just the division games between now and the end of January, you know, the first week of February there before the break. We'll see where the Ducks stand come, you know, Milan. So I think that this is a very important 10-game stretch coming up here. All right, so that's the hockey stuff for the mailbag. But as I said, I wanted to make this a fun, wide open, ask me anything thing. And we got a little bit of everything. But the number one thing, because I had mentioned it specifically, not that I was like fishing for it, but I did get some Star Wars questions. And that's what we'll start off here in the fun part. So before I get into the question, Star Wars is like, I'm a Star Wars guy. I think if sometimes you guys see it, there's a lightsaber right here. There's X-Wing and Yoda pulling the X-Wing out of the Dagobah swamp. If you look down below, there's even more Star Wars down below me here. There's a X-Wing fighter pilot helmet on top of the bookshelf here too. So Star Wars is big for me. It's outside of hockey, outside of sports, you know. I mean, really, if I were to like rank my interests in life, it's like hockey, Star Wars, football, and maybe Batman is like equal to football, because again, this shelf at the very top here is a Batman shelf. So don't want to get into that. Bat signal also next to the X-Wing helmet. I'm a nerd. As much as I'm a sports nerd, a jock in that way. Played sports, watched sports, talk about sports, write about sports all the time up here. The other thing that's playing in the background all the time is Star Wars. So that's a little bit about me. Let's get into the two questions that are down here, and they are very important questions to me. McKenna on Instagram asked, which order of films is best when watching Star Wars? This is a very, very important thing, especially as the younger generations grow up, and now they have 9 of the mainline films to deal with, plus a couple spinoffs. Another one coming this year, Mandalorian and Grogu. Excited for that this summer as they continue the Mandalorian story. My order is simple. I'm not somebody that tries to get cute with the machete order and like looping things back in, and or I just don't think the episodic viewing, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think that loses so much of the dramatics of how the story was being told, because that's just not how we experienced it as time went on. So my answer always is release order, meaning original trilogy, then the prequels, then the sequels. So 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Because again, that's just the way they came out. Like if you watch 1, 2, 3, the way that they tell those stories, as much as they want to say that they're separate, or that you could watch them together, as much as George Lucas wants to tell you that, that's not really what happened. There are so many allusions to things that we already saw or knew, or references, and it's like, clearly you're referencing back to something, not foreshadowing something else. You watch the what is the biggest cinematic reveal in all of American film history? It's Luke, I am your father, right? That's like number one. And if you watch the prequels, well, then you know that Darth Vader is Luke's father. You know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. So all of a sudden when Luke Skywalker shows up, you're like, hey, I think that guy sounds familiar. You know that Luke and Leia are sisters, or brother and sister. So then when you watch Empire, it's weird when they kiss. Like, that's stuff that we just didn't know at the time when we were watching these things. Not that I was there in the 70s, but like I was there for when they did all the re-releases, the special editions in the 90s. And that is how I consumed Star Wars. I watched all the original trilogy on VHS, as a kid playing with my action figures. Then they re-released the special editions, which were seminal moments of my young life, of going to the movie theater, standing in line to see Star Wars. Like, my grandfather took my mom to stand in line and watch Star Wars in 1977. And then in 1997, my grandfather took me to stand in line to go watch Star Wars. My grandfather is not a big Star Wars guy, but it's like a little thread that kind of goes through the family tree there. That's big to me, at least. Anyway, long answer to the question there, but yes, that way. And then like there's also the question, when do you put in the spin-offs, your Rogue One, your Solo, and now you get the Mandalorian movie coming. Those are kind of pick and choose. I would say I would put Rogue One. I would watch Rogue One. See, the problem is like Rogue One leads directly into episode 4. And I'm going to get into some of this in a minute with another question. But like, when would I watch it? I mean, in theory, when I watch it now, I watch it like, to a newcomer, watch it in release order. For me, when I do my rewatches, I go, episodic, chronologic order, I should say. 1, 2, 3, Rogue One, Solo, then Rogue One, then the rest. Not to mention the TV shows and everything else. And like, when should you watch Rogue One? Well, you should watch Andor, and then immediately watch Rogue One after that, and then watch episode 4. But yeah, I don't want to get too in the weeds. You guys don't care. Some of you do. This is important to a lot of people, me. But anyway, yeah, release order for a newbie, and then whatever makes you feel right. If you've seen the movies before, and whatever feels right. But I'll stop it. We'll go to the next question, because this is the real meat and potatoes of the fun questions here. Tin Mints on Instagram asked, rank the Star Wars films. And I'm glad you asked, because do I have a running list in my notes app of rankings of various film franchises at all times? I do. I got Star Wars. I got DC, Batman, Superman, MCU. My MCU list, my Marvel list, is quite intense of how I order those things. And, I don't do the whole thing. I split them up by saga. I am not going to bore you with the rest of that. If you want to know those, there's next month's mailbag. But I have lists. So the Star Wars lists, I have them broken up into, I have a films list, I have a shows list, I have a films and shows list, and I have a films and show seasons list. That's how crazy I am about some of this. But we'll go with the films. We're just going to limit this to the films, my rankings of the films, the definitive, what is the best 1 through 12. Yes, there are actually 12 films, and we will get to that very quickly because one of them is not like the others. My definitive 1 through 12 list of Star Wars films. As of January 15th, we will have a 13th film, again, later this year. So, yeah, I'm gonna go 12-1. Leave the dramatics for the top because the bottom is the bottom, and we don't need to deal with that. So, number 12. This one again is the one that's not like the others. There was the Clone Wars animated series, but right before that, the premiere of the series technically is a film that is in the film canon, The Clone Wars. It's the 3D animated film. I think it was 2008 that came out. Listen, people. It's not great. It's like it's basically 3 episodes of the show, and I love Clone Wars. I think Clone Wars is fantastic. Once you get to season 3, I think the end of season there's parts of season 2 that are pretty good. Season 3, the animation quality finally jumps up a notch. The storytelling gets better, and I think 4 onward is incredible. I think 5, the ending of season 5 is so great. I forget how they number them, but the one when they came back and did the Siege on Mandalore, I think that's season 7 technically, is peak. It's so good. But that all started with this film, which is not great. It's Anakin meeting Ahsoka. It's a couple different missions. One of them, they save Jabba the Hutt's child, who will return in Mandalorian and Grogu, as played by Jeremy Allen White. What a world we live in. But yeah, Clone Wars film is pretty bad. Even when people are watching, like, hey, I want to watch the Clone Wars. Is there like a list? Which, yes, I do have a list of things to watch and not watch in the Clone Wars. Again, categorize it. I say that you watch it just because it's the beginning and so you can see people meet each other. But I feel like you can watch the first 30 minutes of that and just be like, all right, you've seen it. You can turn this off now. It's not good, people. It's not good at all. All right, moving on to the actual live action films. My lesser of these is, there's always a debate. Is it episode 1? Is it episode 2? My least favorite of the live action, despite also having some of my favorite sequences of the prequels, is episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I love all the Obi-Wan stuff. I love all the stuff with Kamino. I like Dexter Jettster. I like Detective Obi-Wan Kenobi. I enjoy those things. The Padme Anakin love story is just not portrayed well at all. It's rough. It's a really rough movie. Especially as a kid, I didn't think anything of it, and you're like, oh, the gladiator fight at the end, but the droid factory sequence, and there's just so much not going right here. I don't have as much fun watching it as you should. Even when I get to the next one, they can be bad and be fun, but the Clone Wars isn't fun. Attack of the Clones has some fun in it, but it's also just oh man, do I really have to watch this sequence right now? But yes, 11, Attack of the Clones. Rank number 10 is episode 1, The Phantom Menace, for similar reasons to Attack of the Clones, but I put it above it because I think it's more fun. Honestly, I think it's a pretty complete movie. Obviously it sets up a lot, but it feels so not out of place, but you could separate it from the other two. I think Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith are kind of paired up, but Phantom Menace, yes, there's Anakin and there's Obi-Wan, but there's a gap. There's a 10-year gap, I think, right, between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and that's kind of evident. But Jar Jar's not great. We'll give you that. But Duel of the Fates is incredible. The pod racing is super fun. I just love the introduction of that side of the world, the new old Republic, Coruscant, all that stuff. I think there's a lot going on there. Kind of leave it at that. Again, not the best, but fun. And that's also how I would classify number 9, which is, this might be my first bit of controversy, ranking this low, but episode 6, Return of the Jedi, is number 9 for me. Yes, below all the sequels, above just 2 of the prequels. Return of the Jedi is a little too goofy. Like, it's just not taking this thing seriously. Harrison Ford obviously didn't take it seriously. He's there to cut a check and get out of there. Again, I think there's a lot of fun sequences. There's a lot of memorable sequences. Like, all of that goes on in Jabba's Palace is memorable. But that is another thing that feels so contained away from like everything else that's going on. It feels like they just had to like, crap, we did leave Han in Carbonite at the end of the last movie. And we want to get on with like all the Empire stuff, but yeah, we should probably go rescue Han. So they have to put this sequence in there. It's fun again, but it's like, is it well done? No, I think it's clearly the less of the first 3 films. And again, huge moments. The ending with, you know, the Luke and the Emperor and Vader and redemption and all that stuff. It's all great. But there's also, they just made another Death Star. And yes, that can be we'll touch on that with the sequels, but like they literally just like within the same films are like, they just made another one. What are you talking? We blew up one already. Why are we doing this again? I like the environment of battling, you know, in the half-made Death Star, but it's still just a Death Star. Like, what are we doing? You have better ideas than that, George Lucas. I know you do. So, number 9, Return of the Jedi. Number 8, again, controversy reigns in this portion of the list. Number 8 for me is 8 out of 12 is Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And I know that a lot of people think that this is their favorite, and you are allowed to have that opinion. I just, frankly, disagree. Look, is it well made? Absolutely. Is there some of the best Force-related theory stuff in all the films? Yes. And that is, I love. Like, one of the threads that goes through middle of Clone Wars, the Mortis stuff, and then into Star Wars Rebels, the other animated show specifically, is the Force stuff. That is what I love the most. I love the rebellion part of it, and then I love the Force theory and mythology and all that. And this does a lot with that. And I think that there's a really good 45 minutes in this movie. And there is also really bad at everything else. I think the slow speed space chase that they're just sort of trying to outlast the ship, like, that sucks. I'm sorry. That whole sequence sucks. Admiral Holdo, not great. I just don't like that sequence. When they're like, well, crap, we don't have anything for Finn to do. And here we're going to introduce him to Rose, who nothing against the actress. I think what's her name? Oh, geez. I'm going to feel really bad that I don't remember her name off the top of my head. But the character's name is Rose Tico. No, just a badly conceived character. And that's nothing against the person who's received a lot of hate, for her performance. It has nothing to do with her. I just don't think it's well written. I don't think she's a useful character in almost any way. So much so that she kind of gets written out entirely in episode 9. That's also an episode 9 problem, but I haven't said episode 9 yet, have I? I think I like the stuff with Rey and Kylo and Luke is great. And as much as I like that stuff, I also just I will never, ever, ever love Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. It just doesn't feel like Luke to me. And I know that there's arguments. Well, like, he's been beaten down. He's gone through crap. Like, I don't really care about that. Like, that's just not, I don't see a world where Luke Skywalker of all people will get beaten down in that way, that he just would react that way. I think there's value to him, like, being disenchanted by things and sort of off on his own, but he would never be so dismissive or mean as that. And, obviously that's not the entire character. That's not how the whole thing goes. But anyway, that's my specific criticisms of it. Everyone's like, well, they're trying to say the Force is for everybody. Rey's nobody. And it's like, sure. And I don't think that any other part of Star Wars has disagreed that the Force is for everybody. Like, again, watch Rebels, watch Clone Wars, like all that stuff is in there. But to, the people point to like, oh my God, Broom Boy at the end. I don't care about Broom Boy. I don't, it does not do anything for me personally. I think it's well made. I think like when it comes to like Admiral Holdo stuff, I love the jump through light speed, blow up the ships thing. That's cool. I think that's awesome. But I remember watching Last Jedi, and when the movie ends, kind of turning to my friend that I was at and just be like, huh. Like, it wasn't a good or bad. It was just sort of like, I don't know what to think of this quite yet. And then I went back and saw it a couple more times, and I was like, this just isn't speaking to me like I think it should. I think it leaves the whole story in a weird place, and I'll touch on that in a second. But I just think that it feels more like a trilogy starter than it does a middle portion to me. So that's my thought. I know I'm going to spend a lot of time on this, but bear with me. We'll edit it down for Instagram. Number 7, Solo, a Star Wars story. Look, not to belabor the point, this one's just fun. Like I think it got a bad rep because of when it came out. It didn't get the right marketing push. All these Star Wars movies in the Disney reign have been coming out in December, right? And they've been more or less a year apart. I think 2 years apart from the main films. But it was like, okay, well, they're going to do one movie and they'll do a saga movie in this December. Next December, it'll be a spinoff, and then alternate every year with that stuff. For whatever reason, I think it was an Avatar movie, now that I think about it. They didn't do that with Solo. What they did was, Last Jedi comes out. There is divisive reaction across the board. People love it. People hate it. There's people like me that are somewhere in the middle that, lean towards not liking it. And they decide, and because that movie comes out in December, they can't start marketing the next Star Wars movie before the previous one comes out. So they don't start marketing Solo, which comes out in May. They don't start marketing it until the Super Bowl was the first trailer. So in February. And in the wake of all the Last Jedi thoughts, this movie tries to come out and people just like didn't mess with it because they wanted more. They didn't feel like it touched on the original trilogy's vibe, with Han Solo and all that. And it's like, I just think if this movie had been given more breathing space, that it would have been more well received, because I do like the performances. I do like what they do with Han and Chewie. I love Lando. I think Donald Glover's Lando is great. I think it's just a super fun movie. And if you haven't seen it, give it a chance, because it's just pure Star Wars fun. I think it's a good one. Don't want to belabor that point because I don't have any highbrow thoughts on it. Just my thoughts are, it got marketed poorly because of everything coming out of The Last Jedi, and it's way more fun than anybody gives credit for. So number 7, Solo, a Star Wars story. Number 6, I'm gonna look dead into the camera and tell you that yes, number 6, not the least of all these, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Do I think this movie could be better? Yes. Do I think it's well executed? A finale of the sequels. I mean, I think it did the best of what it was given. Obviously, I have a lower opinion on The Last Jedi. So if you have a higher opinion on The Last Jedi, you may think that Rise of Skywalker is an abomination and it's lowering your list. That's fine. My view of things is, again, I think everything is so broken and dispersed and like hopeless at the end of oh my God, The Last Jedi. And it's like, so the rebellion is like 12 people now, or the resistance, and like what the hell's going on in the rest of the galaxy? Like it just doesn't feel right. And so I feel like they pulled together, or J.J. Abrams had to come back in and pull together all the threads that he possibly could. I still think that they might have been better served by going with the Colin Trevorrow route. Like, I don't know if this might be too deep in the weeds, but Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct Episode 9. Colin Trevorrow, who did the sorry, my nose is really itchy today. He did the Jurassic World films, or at least the first one. And he was supposed to do Episode 9, and he written a full treatment for that movie, and he was going to call it Duel of the Fates, which kind of cool. There's just a lot of cool ideas in there that would have been a great execute. Like, even with how The Last Jedi goes, like, I feel like that is a more better overall encapsulation of the entire Star Wars saga than what they end up doing in Rise of Skywalker, but I still like it. I love the finale. Like, as much as it's kind of silly that Palpatine came back, they make it make sense to me, at least. Like, I accept it. And I think Rey's fight against Palpatine is great. The I am all the Jedi thing at the end is phenomenal. Like, as somebody that I made a point going into Rise of Skywalker, because I knew it was like the end of the end, to watch everything. I watched 1, 2, 3, where I watched 1, 2, all the Clone Wars, 3, then, Solo and Rogue One and Rebels, and I watched everything leading up to that, to build up. And to me, it felt like at least the final moments of it all feel like a full encapsulation. The Rey Skywalker thing, you know what? I'm just going to leave that one to you guys. But do I have fun in it? I came out of it like, that's a great Star Wars. I had fun. I laughed, cried a little. And just felt, it made me feel more than The Last Jedi ever did. And maybe that says something to you about me, but that's just how I felt about it. I think I have valid, like, if we want to have a full discussion, I can lay out the points. I just don't want to like belabor it here. I know I'm already going along with this one question, but it means something to me. So I'm going through it. Anyway, moving on. Number 5 in my list. So top 5 of the list, if we're keeping track at home, is episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Hoo boy. Again, there are parts of this movie that are not good. I will say that. But I think the opening sequence, in the battle in space and landing with Grievous and all that, I think that's great. The middle is a little suspect. But Order 66 gets me every time. The battle on Mustafar, great. I can go back and forth line for line with the Anakin Obi-Wan speech. I'm bringing peace, security, justice, and security to my new empire. Your new empire? Anakin, my allegiance to the Republic, to democracy. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Only a Sith talks in absolutes. I'm there. I live it. I think about that once a week. It's just a special movie that came at a special time. And I think when it comes to like capping off a series and like, or at least in this case, building up to a point where it's like, hey, we know that these guys got to like rift. We know that Anakin has to become Darth Vader. How do you do it? And I think they pulled that off. Like, that's the whole point of the prequels, is to get you to that moment. And I think that battle and the music and everything is just incredible. All the Order 66 of it all, the Battle of Mustafar, phenomenal cinema. Moving on. Number 4, episode 7, The Force Awakens. Now, again, hey, this is just a repeat of other things. Hey, the sequels aren't good. Listen, this is the movie that it needed to be at the time it came out. It had been, we just came out of the prequels. It had been 10 years, right, without films and Disney acquisition and all that stuff. And you need to get it out on the right foot. And I think this one really does get on the right foot. It is fun. I think I've told as like a joke for a while, why is my nose so itchy today? I am sorry. I had told people that my favorite Star Wars movie for years was the first trailer for Force Awakens. Because I remember where I was when I saw it, because it was like, fuck, this is coming back, this is coming back into my life. And in a big way, in a shiny, special way. Who is this person? Who's that stormtrooper? New Jedi? What's going on? Where's Han? Han's old. There's Chewie. Oh my God. Seeing it in the theaters again for the first time and like experiencing that on the big screen, like knowing, hey, I'm going to sit down. There's going to be a new Star Wars film. And then in big, bold, bright yellow, Star Wars. You're like, oh my God. So part of that is like the emotion that I was feeling at the time. But I also just think it's a really fun, good movie. That hits all the hallmarks. And you may say that it treads on old stuff like, oh, you complain about another Death Star. What is Star Killer Base? I mean, it's not really a Death Star. It's a planet. They made a planet. They didn't just make another Death Star. They made a planet into a Death Star. Not only that, if you go deep enough into the lore, it could be the planet Ilium that they got all the Jedis used to get their kyber crystals for their lightsabers from. That's some deep stuff, and maybe that only means something to me if you're that deep into the nerddom. But like, I think that's cool. And how do I know that? Well, you go play the video game Jedi Fallen Order, which again, just like peak storytelling. Go live your life, man. Go watch that. Go play that. It's great. But Force Awakens up there. All right, top 3. And for me, these are like kind of an unimpeachable top 3 these days. Number 3 is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This movie did not have the right to be as good as it ended up being. And it is like, again, seminal Star Wars storytelling of just taking one line out of the opening crawl of the first movie of like, hey, they stole the Death Star plans. Well, how do they get the Death Star plans? Here's how that played out. Just touches on the tactile nature of how the original trilogy was made, introduces all these new characters that you kind of get embedded with so quickly, tells this story that, again, shouldn't be a big deal and is. It's so dramatic. It's so well thought out. It's impeccably like filmed and created, and the battle sequences are so good, and the way that they integrated the old stuff with new technologies is just it's so good. And the fact that it like now spun off into Andor, which is like not just one of the best, not just the best Star Wars show, not just a good Star Wars show, it's a great TV show, and funnily enough, the most important and relevant TV show of our time, unfortunately. If you look outside your door or the news and then watch specifically like the last 6 episodes of Andor season 2, it's too much, too close. Don't want to go too far down that road, but it does something like, and this is all before they tack on the Darth Vader scene at the end, which is like the most intense scene maybe in all of the films anywhere. Just good, man. Again, it just injects something into you, makes you feel, and that's how I feel about a lot of these. But I think Rogue One is, honestly, if it wasn't for like the nostalgia factor of the top 2, I wouldn't feel bad about putting Rogue One number 1. I think it is just damn near perfect. And it's my favorite Star Wars trilogy now is the end of Andor, Rogue One into Episode 4. I think that's a perfect lineage, and they all make each other feel different. You watch Rogue One and you think about Episode 4 differently. You watch Andor, you think about Rogue One differently, which in turn makes you think about Episode 4 differently. It's good. So the top 2, if you're keeping track, this should be no surprise. And number 1 shouldn't be a surprise either. But number 2 is Episode 4, New Hope. It is the reason for all of it. Like if they had never made anything else, if they had just made Star Wars as it wasn't Episode 4 then, it was just Star Wars. And if they just left it right then and there, it would still be groundbreaking American cinema. It would still be an all-time ironclad classic of a film. It is the hero's journey, the archetype. It is, just change the way the films were made, change the way that the box office works, change the way that the whole entire medium works. I mean, the way that George Lucas negotiated his contract to get the merchandising rights, which nobody was like, oh yeah, sure, George, we'll give you the funding for the merchandising rights. Nobody's going to want action figures and t-shirts and lightsabers and helmets and everything else. Who would want all that? Me. It's just, I mean, I don't even, like, if you haven't seen Star Wars, then you should watch Star Wars. Like, I'm not going to tell you to watch all of it if you've never seen Star Wars, but watch the first one, because it is self-contained in its way. Like, yes, there's obviously things that obviously there's plenty of things that they build out from it because they've made as much as they have. But like, if that film just existed on its own, then that would be it, and it would be fantastic. But yeah, just indelible characters, indelible storytelling that lives on forever, and ignited a generation. And then last one, because again, this is going probably longer than it should. I think this is going longer than the last time I did it. Number one, episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. It's the best sequel of all time. It has one of the best cinematic reveals of all time. Again, all the filmmaking techniques from the first one, they build on the storytelling, they expand on the lore, they break wide open. The Hoth battle scene will forever be my favorite. Luke versus Vader will always be at least the top 2 lightsaber fight for me, just because of the emotion that goes into it. It's not the most well choreographed or anything, but there is a sizzling undertone to it the entire time. Lando's great. It set a new precedent for sequels in the world, and it's just well made. It's just great. It's perfect. And I don't really have much more to say than that. Then it's perfect. Like, I have plenty of things to say about my criticism one way or the other, the others, but like, Empire's Empire. Like, what are you gonna debate me about whether Empire Strikes Back is good enough? I'm just, one, I don't think there's the argument, and two, if you have one, I'm not gonna listen. A great debater that I am. So yeah, we'll list them through again, just because, I went long and maybe you don't remember. But 12, The Clone Wars, the animated film, not good. 11, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. 10, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. 9, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. 7, Solo, A Star Wars Story. 6, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. 5, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. 4, Episode 4, The Force Awakens. 3, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. 2, Episode 4, A New Hope. And number 1, with a bullet, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. That's my Star Wars rankings. Thank you for sitting with me. All right, let's get to the rest of it. May the Force be with you. On to the rest. I'm sorry for going long, guys. Like, I wanted to make this longer and fun and bigger, and I wanted to get more of these fun questions, and we maybe don't let me go on too long about the Star Wars movies, but that's what it is. Anyway, to the Twitter fun questions. Anaheim Calling, the sentient blog that still lives on somehow, asked, best and worst Ducks moments you've been to live before journalism career included. So my Ducks journalism career is short. It's, the last 2 seasons. So I wouldn't classify any of the last 2 years as best or worst, even though I've seen some bad losses in there. Best, I mean, I was there. I was in person for the cup winning game. I was there. I was there throughout the entire 03 run, up to the Western Conference Championship and the Stanley Cup final. And so those are obviously standouts. I was there for Ryan Getzlaf's 1,000th point. I was there for Teemu Selanne's 1,000th point. I was there for Corey Perry's 50th goal in that MVP season. The only best Ducks moment in history that I wasn't in person for, I was not there for the comeback on Catella, despite being there for pretty much everything else, and that is something that I will rue forever. I was covering a high school track meet that night for the Orange County Register, and so it wasn't like, and it was a league final, so I couldn't even like get out of it. It wasn't like, oh, this is just like a midseason meet. I had to go cover that. Couldn't go to the game, so I literally deleted the ESPN and NHL apps off my phone and muted all notifications from Twitter and all that day. And then I got home and watched it on DVR, and kept watching and kept wondering, why is my family not home yet? And then I saw why, the incredible, sequence at the end, the 3 goals in 5 minutes, and Corey Perry in double overtime. Wasn't there for that, but that's not a best or worst. So I've been like, if there is a big Ducks moment aside from that one, I've been there for it. So you can put those in the bests. Jiggy and Teemu doing the lap was there for that. I think that's the most emotional moment aside from the cup. Worst, just a few weeks after that Jiggy Teemu moment, I was there for every single Game 7 loss in that stretch. The worst of them, of course, being to the Kings, not only because, the Ducks lose to their rivals in the first time they ever played each other, but the fact that they lose to their rivals, they get blown out, and it's Teemu Solani's final game. Like, that was rough to sit through, especially knowing that was a game they just didn't show up for. Like some of those Game 7s, they from the time the puck dropped, they were not in it. But I think that one is probably the toughest. That one or the Blackhawks one, the next year, because again, that was a series that I feel like the Ducks should have won, and that was a cup that I feel like the Ducks should have won, like many people do, and that was tough. So, second question from dumbest nickname for a player you can remember hearing. You don't have to tell us who the player is. I mean, I couldn't tell you the nicknames of some of these guys because it's pretty obvious who they would be. I don't have any like current ones that I think are truly dumb. My thing with the hockey nicknames, because they're all sort of what they are, right? They either end in ER or Y. I just don't like when like they take these and they're supposed to shorten them, right? They're supposed to be, a nickname is, in hockey at least, is like cutting a name in half and adding a Y onto the end of it. But when it's like, the only one that comes to mind is like Patrick Kane. Everyone calls him Kaner. It's like, well, that you're just making his last name one letter longer and saying it differently. Why don't you just call him Kane? What is Kaner other than like being affectionate? Why don't you just call him Patty? I think Patty is probably a better thing in that regard. Yeah, I think there's ones in the current locker room, like Troy Terry being Timmy. I never have understood personally. Like I get it. It's like you're just taking a T and doing it, but yeah, I don't have any big thoughts on that. Hockey nicknames are boring, and it's just when there's one that's like out of the box, you're like, oh, look, you use some creativity there. You didn't just throw a Y or an R on half a name. So that's my thought there. And the last one here, if we want to get a little introspective, was from my colleague in the press box. Derek Lee asked, what is your New Year's resolution? So there's a lot that goes into this one. I don't necessarily need to go too deep. But every year, my friends on New Year's Eve, it's become a tradition that, we give like a word of intention for the year. Like we pick a word that we're sort of taking into the next year. Like this is what our focus is. So you can call that a resolution. Because when it comes to resolutions, like, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to, like, yeah, I started working on losing weight last year. I lost 40 pounds last year from the end of July up till the start of the season. I had made a point of like getting in shape for camp. That was my idea. And then I did well, but I wanted to lose more, and I still do. But I was like, okay, well, now I'm going to get in shape through camp. So I was able to keep up my schedule during the preseason. But once the regular season hit, it's just so tough with like the daily, all the time with the practices and the morning skates and the games and every other day with the games. It's been a ragtag. I think what's happening here is my mustache is getting up into my nose. So that's what's happening. Sorry. So, you can say that or travel more like that. But what we do instead of we make words and sort of make that like a theme. And I used like a cop out the last 2 years where, after I think, was it 2 years ago, my word was forward, because it's like, okay, I was in my previous job for as long as I was, and, you know, life had kind of gotten in the way or stagnated a bit. It's like, okay, I need to move forward. I need to move forward in my career. I need to get up and out of this, and I need to move on. And then I got laid off from my job, 4 months into that year. And so that kind of set me back, didn't move me forward, set me back. So I had to keep like trying and struggling and working, and, just, it was difficult. So then I got to the next new year, and what was my word again? Well, because nothing had really changed. In fact, if any, like at best I was level, and at worst I was backwards. So my word again was, well, forward. I have to move forward. I have to put this all behind me. It was kind of like a different kind of forward. It wasn't like, oh, I need to get up and out of it. It's like, no, I need to put this here behind me. I need to get on with things. And so I pushed, and I started doing this, and it was a great year, and I kept moving. I felt like I was doing stuff to move myself forward, but still lacking some of the things that I was thinking about, like moving on with life stuff and everything else. So going into this year, I feel like there had been more forward movement. Like I've done more here with this channel and the podcast and reporting and going on these road trips that I've been doing, and getting great response from everybody out there, and getting in touch with stuff, and just trying to be a better person, for myself, for my relationships, for my life, and just trying to continue moving that forward. So I've done some good work, and again, maybe this is a cop out, but I think the word this year was momentum. To not let all that work go to waste, to keep expanding what I'm doing, to do more with this podcast, to do more with the videos, to do more with the reporting, obviously trying to go on more road trips, and do other things in my life that just sort of build on the next thing, and not let this slip, and not let these opportunities that I've made for myself evaporate. So I can't thank everyone else out there enough for the support through all of this, and again, supporting the work, and supporting me, and championing just having more people in this Ducks media space. I could have come in and fell on my face, and everybody would be like, oh, who the hell is this guy? He doesn't know anything. And to some degree, I don't know anything. But I feel like I'm working hard, and I feel like it wouldn't be without, all you great people that have interacted with me, and kind of kept me going. And some of these days when, like I mentioned before, like there has been burnout, because it's a lot of work for not as much tangible reward, as you want. I've been trying to be, or I've been working at, not trying to be, because I have been, I wanted to be a sports reporter since I was in 7th grade, when I realized that my dreams of going pro were probably far behind me, even at that point. I wanted to be a pro hockey player. When I was in elementary school, my thing was I want to be a pro hockey player, astronaut, president. I wanted to do all those things. I wanted to be a pro hockey player, then went to space, and then ended up getting elected president. I was far behind on the hockey part because it took me a long time to get on the ice and wasn't very good. Astronaut also probably behind me because I don't think I would have made flight school, and that's a long journey. And I guess there's still time to be president. There's nothing that says I couldn't. But so once I got to that point, it was like, okay, well, this is what I want to do. There was like a class project where we had to make a magazine, and I made the SoCal Sports Report, and it just so happened to be the year of the Ducks going to the Stanley Cup Final, so in 2003, and so I had a lot of material to work with, which was good. And the Angels had just won the World Series, and there was plenty to go off of. I think the Lakers had won a title that year too, if memory serves. I was a huge Lakers fan at that point because of Kobe and Shaq, but there's too much overlap with hockey that I just can't follow it as much as I used to. So yeah, I've been working at that since then. You know, high school paper, college paper, freelancing for the Register, covering high school sports for quite a long time. Getting my first full-time job covering high school sports in South Orange County. You know, my home areas, covering schools that I attended, and covering their sports teams. And I've been grinding at it, and whether it's stuff like COVID getting in the way or just the business changing as much as it has, I haven't been able to make those leaps that I want to. And part of that is me. Part of that is not trying to take some of those leaps earlier and getting boxed into a corner by my own design, not intentionally, but just, you know, the way things go. And so all of it, again, in terms of momentum, it's just building on itself and building and building and building. And I've always said that, like, I wish the Sporting Tribune opportunity had come earlier in my career here, and that I could have been doing this, because covering the Ducks, as evidenced by, you know, just talking here and maybe just seeing the environment that I record these things in, it's been a dream. It's my dream job was to cover the Anaheim Ducks and to be a voice for the people into that room, and to take the stuff out of there and inform you and tell this team's stories, these players' stories, this franchise's story, and be some small part of that, and be that kind of conduit between the fans and the people that make up the team on the ice. And you know, it's not a sappy thing. I don't go in there as a fan or anything. I leave that hat at the door. I leave that hat when I come on here. You know, I left that hat behind. And as anybody that's in sports journalism knows, like, I think we all get into sports because we're fans, and we get into sports journalism because we are sports fans. But as time goes on, like, the way the business works, like, you have different priorities, and, you know, fandom does not fall into that part of it. You know, you want to see, I want to see the team do well, because I think it's fun to cover a winning team, and you get to know some of these guys and you want them to do well personally. But when the team does badly, it can't affect you, because you're just there to do your job and cover things. So I think I've worked really hard to be where I am, and I've worked really hard to make this something. But to make this something a real thing, and to make it more, isn't entirely up to me. I can do as much work as I want. And as I said, you do a lot of work, and if there's no tangible reward coming back to you, whether that's simply, you know, whatever you want to classify that as, whether it's not adulation, because I'm not looking for everyone's like good words, but I want to know that I'm doing good work, and you want to be able to live your life and survive. You know, you put a lot of stuff into that. So I want to ride that momentum. I want to make this something. And that, again, I can't do that without everybody else out there. So again, thank you for supporting. Thank you for anyone that supports on the Patreon. Thank you for anyone that's donated to the travel fund. There's been a donation or two in there that when they come in, you're like, really, for me? Not like crazy amounts or anything, but just enough to be like, you know what, that will cover enough to like get part of a ticket, or cover meals, or cover at least one night in a hotel room or something. I would have never anticipated some of that from people, and it's great. So don't want to get too sappy or in my own thoughts here, because I do have stuff to do the rest of the day. But yeah, my New Year's resolution is momentum, to keep rolling this forward, to make this bigger and better, and to continue to be the best I can be at this job, and try to make something out of this in this crazy world that we're living in today. So thanks, everybody. And back to the present. Thank you to everyone for asking your questions in the mailbag. again, I sincerely apologize for the delay of things. It's just a combination of, as I said, of burnout and maybe just procrastination on my end. Neither of those are good things, but they sometimes go hand in hand. And apologize for all that. But again, so grateful for everyone for asking the questions, for all the watchers, the readers, the listeners, and extremely grateful to everyone that submitted the questions on Patreon that are the subscribers. If you want to have your questions guaranteed to be answered, you want to be part of that Patreon community, go to patreon.com/Zach Cavanagh. If you want to help support my coverage and help me, raise funds to put back into the coverage, whether that's in terms of road games, more tech. I've got some stuff that I'm trying to implement here. Looking forward to doing all that, but wouldn't be able to do literally any of it without the readers and watchers. I wouldn't be able to do the travel without the support of people on Patreon or through the travel fund. Links for all of that, again, are in the description below. Thank you so much to everyone out there. So we'll wrap this up. Going forward, Ducks, again, one more home game on Monday against the Rangers. Hopefully Chris Kreider is able to go for that one. It would be a shame if he if in his first game in New York that Mika Zibanejad didn't get to play, and if when Mika Zibanejad comes to Anaheim that Kreider is not able to play. Hopefully he's able to go. And plus, for the Ducks end of things, you want to see Chris Kreider back in the lineup. And then they'll go on the road, again, opening with a big test in Colorado, a crucial divisional game against Seattle. I will be at both of those games. Follow all the coverage on Sporting Tribune YouTube, on the Ducks in Deep podcast. I'm trying to do some special things on the road to kind of get you more into the space there, and again, just keep on top of this team as they go through a couple really crucial games to open a 5-game road trip as they look toward the Olympic break. So, all that being said, follow the Sporting Tribune on your podcast platform of choice. If you're already there, please rate and review. It helps out a ton in terms of exposure for the podcast. You can also, again, follow the Sporting Tribune YouTube channel to watch these videos and see my face and see how I looked when I did the first mailbag, how I look right now, how I might look in Seattle and Denver next week. Also on the Sporting Tribune YouTube, we get the post game, the practice updates, the morning skates, interviews, all that stuff is there. And again, there'll be maybe a little more spice in that on the road, a little more zest to the coverage once I'm with the team outside of the friendly confines of the Ducks in Deep Corner studio here. Follow me on all the socials at Zach Cav, at ZACHCAV on Twitter, Threads, and Instagram, at Zach Cav Sports on TikTok and Blue Sky. Again, all the video, articles, everything can be found there if you want to keep up to date, up to the minute with everything that I'm doing on the Ducks beat. And as I mentioned before, follow on or subscribe on Patreon at patreon.com/Zach Cavanagh, or contribute to the travel fund to help support this coverage, support my road work, and so much more. Again, links for all that in the description below. Cannot be more grateful for the support everyone has shown to me, to the show. And I love running into people, whether it's walking into Honda Center like I did last night, to the Duck My Life crew. Watch their YouTube videos. They're always great watches. To everyone I see at practices, to anywhere in between. Just say hi. If you see me at Chipotle, say hi. I'm there. Like I did to Jay Woodcroft before the season. Saw him at a Chipotle by the rink. So anyway, that's a different story altogether that I can't really tell all the details of. With all that being said, thank you for the support. Look forward to this upcoming road swing. We'll be with the team. And until next time, see you at the rink.